And hello and good night, everybody. This is Terminator Juice. Welcome to episode 1 of a new podcast series called East Meets West. And in this case, it's East Coast meets West Coast. It's going to be kind of a unregulated, unscheduled series where I'll try to get some podcast and discussions going with people in other time zones who you can't always or can never make the juices loose. And Rob's was a perfect candidate because of
Pretty
your
much
move.
never.
Yeah, you fall in the never category. So you moved out to Portland and you got that extra 1 hour time difference, and that's just made it damn near impossible to get you on the juices loose. So you were the inspiration, so it's fitting you're the first guest. So why don't you say hi to everybody?
Yeah, what's up, guys? Hopefully you know me. My name's Rob. I run the channel Rule of Two Review. I have been on many a Juices Loose podcast in the past, but like Terminator was saying, that did kind of change when I moved a little bit ago. So I'm glad to have inspired the podcast and stoked to be the first guest.
Yeah, so I figured the weekend would be the best time to get people aligned on the same time slot. So because I don't work on the weekends, so it's what works best for me. So we'll see if this grows into anything, and we get some viewers and participation. We'll do it again. So
Hey, if not, we can just make it a TJ and Rob podcast every week.
yeah, yep. And if somebody like Francis / OJ, I usually only do podcasts on his what's it, Player Essence vidcast.
Oh yeah, the vidcast.
Yeah, the vidcast. So if he wanted to be on, this going to be the forum for that.
Yeah, I mean, he's on the same coast that I am, so.
Yeah, and then it also could potentially expand if somebody's over in Europe or even further, Japan, something anywhere. Same time slot as me or time zone. I mean, I'll be open to that. So if anyone's interested, just send me a message on Google Plus or something, and we'll see if we can work out the details. So I guess before we get started, since my audience hasn't heard from you in a while, Rob, first off, how's Portland treating you?
Portland's good. It's weird because for anyone who does or doesn't know, I moved from Denver, Colorado about 7 months ago here to Portland, Oregon. And there's a lot about the two cities that are really different and a lot about them that are similar. Like they're both really outdoorsy states. They both have a lot of wetness to the weather, but they're just at different times because Portland's wet all the time and Denver is really only wet in the winter because we don't get a lot of rain in Denver. And Portland's also a weird place. There's a lot of weird people and weird things happening, but it's really pretty. It's super green compared to what Denver was like because Denver isn't so green. It's really dry there. So, just the whole general vibe is really great. I moved out here for work, too, kind of for a better position there, and things have been working out there. So, in general, I'm digging it. Got my girlfriend out here after a couple of months, and so we're liking it for now. It's a lot of fun, even though it's far away from Juice's loose time, unfortunately.
Yeah, I've heard it's really laid back. The people there are really just kind of friendly, or
yeah, they're super friendly, and again, that's something that for the most part it does share with a place like Denver also. But yeah, people are really laid back and friendly, and I don't know, like it's a oddly very populated area. The traffic is way more dense than I was expecting, and that part is kind of still a pain in the butt. But it's weird because there's like crazy traffic everywhere you go, and I got to take a highway to get to and from work. But no one has road rage. So there's like a lot of people on the road, but everyone's really nice about how many other people there are, which most cities, even Denver, which is a much bigger city than Portland, people aren't typically nice on the road, but here they are. And so that part is pretty cool, surprising.
Yeah,
so I recommend just coming out for a visit.
I've been to Denver 7-8 times, and it's definitely everybody's outside. They're always walking, jogging, hiking. It's a very fit, like everybody there is fairly fit, and
it's huge there. Yeah, actually, a lot of Olympic training happens there too because of the altitude.
Yeah, and I don't know, they just live a different lifestyle. There's a lot more to do, a lot more active, and that was the biggest change I've noticed from where I live. Everyone's lazy and overweight. So
well, that's like Detroit. You're basically by Detroit, right? Or
I'm 3 hours away.
Oh, okay. So I was like, hopefully it's cool. I said that's where you live. Yeah. So like I've been there before, and I've always kind of considered it what I sort of call like a mechanical town, quote unquote, where it's
Yeah,
just very like big buildings, industrial, not a lot of like scenery kind of stuff.
yeah. If you're not by the stadiums, the Tiger State Field, or what do they call it? Fifth Third, and or Ford, Ford Field.
Ford
If you're
Field,
not
yeah.
right around there during a game, that city's pretty. It's not like ever. It's not. You don't see a bunch of people walking the streets and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Which is
So
like really common in a place like Denver. But
mhm.
I've been to that area where you're at a little bit. I made a trip a long time ago, and it was a lot of fun. We got lost. You couldn't turn left anywhere everywhere you went. It's like don't turn left,
Yeah,
and
you have to
we didn't
go
know how to get
past.
around.
You have to go past the intersection, and then there's usually a little spot to take a left turn.
What is that? I know this is like detracting from gaming talk, but what is that about? Why is it that way?
I don't know. They just feel, I guess, it frees up the intersection from too many people. Especially on we got two one ways kind of opposing like a
Hmm.
freeway, not a highway, but kind of a freeway area.
Sure.
And I don't know, just they just pass the intersection, they just create a left turn lane. You turn, you do a little
A
half
little
turn, and
Yui.
you're heading the other way. And it's like,
It's
we
weird.
call it the Michigan left.
But Michigan left is two lefts beyond the left you needed.
So, and then before we get started, I have a question. I didn't let
Oh,
you know beforehand, but I have
oh
a
wait, this is
question.
unscripted, people. I'm nervous here.
Unscripted.
I
Um, I have to get or find out what you're doing different. How are you still a Nintendo fan now that you have an Xbox One and a PS4? I'm just trying to figure out how you've stayed a Nintendo fan this whole time.
Oh yeah, wow, that's a really good surprise question. But it's also a really easy answer, and it's honestly it's because they still make the best games. Like there's no question about that. They have some weird business practices, and sometimes they make some boneheaded decisions, obviously. But like I said on a pretty recent video, every company does make boneheaded decisions. Sometimes people pay more attention to Nintendo's, which is kind of unfair, but it is what it is. I certainly like my Xbox and I like my PlayStation, but the reason I still like Nintendo is because if I had to pick a company's games, I'm picking Nintendo's games, and even more than their already established games, it's like their game design. So if they're making a new game like Splatoon, for example, or another something or else, like I just know that the design that Nintendo themselves puts into a game is going to outclass pretty much anyone else out there. So dumb business practice and third party or no third party, like none of that stuff really phases me as much. It's all about the games, and theirs are the best. So that's me.
That's good.
Yeah.
I don't see the dumb business practices as much as everyone seems to take that as a common factual information. And I'm like,
Hmm.
other than the Wii U marketing and maybe the name, I mean, I just
Yeah, those are good recent examples. Like, and
I
I would
don't
agree
see
with
that as
those.
like huge because the Wii was so successful and the brand recognition. I remember hearing people before the name was revealed, like they should stick with the Wii. Everybody knows the name recognition, stay with that. And that wasn't like the unanimous. It wasn't like the majority, but I remember people saying that beforehand.
That they
And
should stick with the Wii kind of
yeah, like
name.
stick with the Wii. Everybody knows the name. I remember a few people saying that. So I don't see their bad horrible decisions that everybody else says.
Yeah.
um I see some just quirky weird things sometimes, like I guess the name of the new 3DS or something like that.
Yeah.
That's, to me, that's not like horrible decision making. It's just a weird choice of a name. But then you look at the Xbox One, I think that's a worse name.
I would agree with you there, actually.
Except, the Xbox name is more value to gamers than the Wii at that point, but still,
Yeah.
Xbox One to me that
Yeah, Xbox One with like the spelled out one
makes no
was kind
sense.
of weird.
No
Yeah, and
sense.
I think the whole thing you bring up totally good points, and I agree with a lot of that too. It's a lot of it's kind of subjective, but I think and a lot of times when people determine if this was a smart move or a bad move, it's reactionary to how things played out. So the Wii
And
U
it's
is a terrible name because it turned out to not be successful.
yeah,
It's
it's
like oh,
like in hindsight, it's easy to say.
like that was a mistake. They should have run the ball. It's basically that you should
Well,
have run
like
the
how many
ball.
people said the Splatoon advertising campaign was a huge mistake and was terrible, and that turned into the highest
Of
selling
super.
new IP that exclusive. I mean, it's not a multi-plat.
Yeah.
Watch Dogs, obviously, and Destiny were new IPs, but as far as
Sure.
like exclusive new IP, nothing's even come close to it in recent memory as far as sales wise. So
Well, I will say I have to give a little bit of props to my game Bloodborne because that was a new one that did
yeah,
do
it sold like a
almost as good.
million. I think it
Yeah,
sold like a
it's
million.
definitely Splatoon surprised and did better than Bloodborne did, but
Yeah,
Bloodborne gets a little bit of props. It did pretty well.
yeah, that did good, but
So,
Splatoon's almost at 3 million, and it's probably
which is
gonna
insane.
end
Yeah.
up probably at five at least. So,
Yeah, that's just really
um,
cool.
but anyway, a lot of people were saying that the advertising campaign was
Yeah,
terrible
I love
beforehand.
the song. I love the
I
song,
like the
so to
song.
me
I
it
like
worked.
punk. I like
Yeah.
female singers. I like punk music,
Yeah, it's catchy. Even
and
Jim Sterling liked it. I mean, come on.
people. I still can hear it in my head.
Yeah.
It was an effective song, whether you liked it or not. But
Yeah.
anyway, I'm just glad you didn't play your Xbox One and then go back to your Wii U and said I can't play this trash anymore. Like
No
some
way.
people have said, it's like
I love it. And honestly, one of the games we're going to spend a lot of time talking about tonight is one of the reasons why I knew I would stick by it. And it's there's a lot of reasons to stick with the Wii U, I think, in Nintendo.
I mean, yeah, like since 3D World launched, we've gotten some really, really good game, like amazing, great games
It's true. 3D World really
consistently.
did kick it off, you know. Although
Yeah,
I would personally argue Wonderful 101 because that came out
yeah, you
beforehand
could
and
start with that Pikmin and Wind Waker, but 3D World to me, like looking at the Metacritic, looking at the reception, was
the
the
sales.
first
Yeah, it was huge.
really high rated current gen game, and I think they've just been delivering great games like since we've gotten Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze and Mario Kart 8. We got Hyrule Warriors and Bayonetta, Smash
Smash
Brothers.
Brothers.
Captain Toad was a kind of iffy for me.
It's not like a. I actually really like that game, but Captain Toad or even
I
another
thought
game.
Kirby was
Yeah,
way better for
yeah.
me.
I knew you were gonna bring up Kirby, which I like both those games a lot. I own them, but they're not like the kind of game that you really can use in the same sort of fashion as like the overall high
Hmm.
quality. They're very small little budget titles, but for budget titles, they're both pretty excellent.
I mean, Kirby's just the art style and music alone is worth the purchase. But
Yeah.
then they go into Splatoon, and we've gotten Mario Maker. For me, that's like my game of the year. Into Yoshi,
Hmm.
Fatal Frame. We got X coming. So to me, it's just it hasn't been like every month. Like I don't think Nintendo's ever delivered games monthly, like people seem to
Well,
think.
really,
It's always
most
in the
companies
holiday
don't do
season.
that. And I mean,
No,
it's such a weird thing the way people talk about that. It's like if any one system, PlayStation, Xbox, Wii U, whatever, if they have 3 or 4 games spread across the whole year, like that's about standard. Like that's, I mean, I probably buy only 4 games a year for any one console.
yeah, and
So
it does suck that there's not the Batman's to fill in the gaps, the Witchers,
yes,
type of games.
which I definitely agree with, and I think it's a shame. And that's like for me when I talk about like if there's bad business practice or mistake decisions and stuff, like an argument could be made, and this is how I personally feel about the whole thing because you've probably heard me talk about third parties. Like obviously Nintendo and the Wii U, well maybe not the Wii U, Nintendo maybe doesn't need those kind of games to survive, but I think that they could only be helpful. And however, all these different things led to them and third party companies not really getting on the same page. That's probably a lot of it mistakes on the third parties, and I definitely think some of it could be put on Nintendo's, such as maybe choosing to make another system whose power doesn't match its competition. So it's hard for a company to make Fallout 4 work on the Wii U, for
Yeah,
example. Stuff like that. That's like my personal definition of a quote unquote boneheaded decision. Even though the power of the Wii U is absolutely fine for me, it creates things like a rift in a third party, which makes it hard for a lot of those games to appear on their system. Things
it's
like that.
funny though the how weak the Wii was. Call of Duty had no problems.
Yeah, I don't get that, man. Like, there's definitely some
Because you
things
could
not adding
scale it.
up.
I'm sorry, they could scale a game down. It
Yep.
like Watch Dogs. That was
Yep.
good looking, pretty decent, good looking PS4 game. It looked
Yeah.
fine on the Wii U. Like
It looks good on the Wii U.
it's
Absolutely
like
looks good. And I mean,
yes,
and when I talk about Fallout 4, for example, which I've raved about, why didn't they make Fallout 4 on this freaking system? They have the
with the
gamepad, which works so perfectly. And it's like, okay, the visuals wouldn't look as good. I agree. The Wii U can't do that. But I think they could easily make a game that looks as good as a version of the game that is scaled down to look as good as Fallout 3 or even slightly better. And that game is still going to be a good Fallout game with an amazing controller.
exactly.
But
They could have made just it should have been slightly improved over Fallout 3 from a visual standpoint.
yeah.
And
And
yeah, instead they release what's the collector's edition cost that
it's
has the pit.
$150 until GameStop apparently recently had like upscaled to like $190 version.
Yeah, and
So it's a lot of money.
it comes with like a touch screen, like Pit Boy.
Yeah.
It's pretty cheap looking if you ask me, but
Yeah, I mean,
and
as
then
a huge Fallout fan, I'm kind of like, ooh, that looks cool, but it's not like the most important thing. And it's they
do you
could
like
have
put your phone in it or does it
you
have
put
its
your
own?
phone in it. Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to download an app and put your phone in it, which is neat. But it's like, wow, you could have given people that for free on the Wii U version if you had decided to spend that time to do
Yeah.
it. And,
I think
they decided it was.
the problem was I remember Iwata talking after they did the 2011 reveal. He was like talking about how they were still finalizing the hardware because he said they were balancing um, performance as far as how much power it was going to consume to and how much it was going to cost. Like they wanted a super
Mm,
efficient because Japanese there's there's not a lot of space in Japan. They're running out of room and I'm sure they have issues
sure.
with
Yeah.
power hog devices and stuff. It's just not their way. It's not their philosophy. So if you're going to make a console that's going to be worldwide, you're going to have to cater to
A
the
couple
the
audiences
lowest
and
common denominator, which is Japan has a problem with power. They need low power so that means they can't make a super powered one for the West
yeah.
and make a weaker one. So there was some things that they decided last minute, and they stripped away some of the performance last in the last 6 months or whatever before they started. And that was definitely a decision they made.
Yeah, and I actually didn't know that, so that's very interesting.
Yeah, he said there was a couple interviews where he was saying they were trying to what do they call it? Like balancing the power, the
Power,
costs,
performance, yeah.
and the energy that it required to operate. If it had more power, then it needs more energy, needs a bigger power supply.
Well, and it's also at all times, well, usually most times, also powering the gamepad, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's a whole nother factor I'm sure they had to consider.
So, and then I don't think they thought a $400 price range would have worked. Who knows how much extra juice and how much extra graphical performance they could have got with an extra $50. But
Yeah,
the
probably not
PlayStation
that much.
the PlayStation 4 proved that people are happy to pay $400 for a console. So
Yeah, I actually was of the ilk before the Wii U came out, and we really like knew what it was capable of. This may sound counterproductive to like a normal gamer, but I was like, I kind of hope it costs like $400 or so because it'll mean it's a there's a lot of technology in the system
mm-hmm.
hopefully, and maybe it's going to have like a power that's going to make people happy, and the game head can do all these extra things because if it costs that much, that means there's a lot of technology in the machine. So it's like, like paying more money totally sucks, but what that could have represented for like a Nintendo next gen console would have been really exciting. And so then 350, $300 makes you think, oh, like it's a little bit cheaper. It's not as good as the other machines,
Mm-hmm.
it's like a little $300 toy. Like it kind of has that perception, and it would be nice to not have that, but it's a double-edged sword because cheaper price is also good because we pay less.
Yeah, because I mean, I think that's majority of the reason the Wii sold so well was it started at
Mm,
250, but it wasn't long before it hit. It sold well at 250, but as soon as it hit
it did.
199, it was over. It just sounded like crazy.
So let me ask you this: do you think when it comes to pricing like future machines and like the next console, do you think that they need to focus on that? Do you think that maybe the gamer nowadays is less worried about hitting those certain price points if they know that it's really worth it based on the tech inside the machine? Do you think people will pay it?
I really have trouble seeing people getting over their Nintendo bias against Nintendo and paying
Mm.
400 for a Nintendo machine, even if it is way significantly more powerful than a PS4. I see people just not being able to get over that Nintendo name on there and pay 400 because they've always Nintendo's most expensive system of all time was the Wii U at 350.
Yeah.
They usually launch at 200. The Wii launched at 250 with a game and worked, but
But
it's
that
I'm
was
torn.
also, I do think that with the Wii, it was like crazy impressive marketing. Like they knocked the marketing out of the
Mm-hmm.
park that time. And so
But
like I see what you're saying. I just wonder if maybe if really good marketing the next time around, if they had a $400 machine, could they make it sell still, or would it still be a struggle?
I think it'd be a struggle. It'd
Mm.
have because you got to win over all the dude bros and those type of people.
Yeah.
Europe Europe is just buying up the PlayStation 4 and the Vita right now. It's like they're just like
Really?
consuming the Vita does like 20,000 a week in Europe right now.
That's crazy.
And no reason why, just because
Yeah.
got Sony's name on it, I guess.
I mean, I'm glad it's doing well. Like I think I want anyone to see
But it
success.
doesn't
But
doesn't
is it
really
worth it?
sell anywhere else. So it's just like,
Yeah, what a weird thing. I didn't know that. That's a really
well, they just
strange. I don't know.
Europe's all in with the PlayStation, man. They're just all in. So, um, but yeah, that was interesting. That was a good spontaneous topic there. We didn't really
Yeah.
plan on that. So,
Nope, that was perfect.
um, let's get into our Fatal Frame 5 impressions. I gave mine on the Juices Loose, so I'm
Mhm.
more curious to get your take. So, we'll start with just like one or two sentence impressions, and then we'll break it down by like controls, visuals, the combat, and like the atmosphere and story. So I guess
Sure.
just sum it up real quick. How do you feel about the game?
Okay, real quick, although not perfect, I definitely think the game is really awesome. I'm enjoying it, and it was worth my purchase so far.
Yeah, I go one step further. I think it's a great game, and I'm really enjoying it. So um, it was definitely worth the purchase for me. And so let's break it down. We'll start with the biggest negative, I guess, to
Hmm.
some people, which I don't even. To me, it doesn't even bother me, and that's the controls. So
Hmm.
um, for me, it makes it feel like a old school horror game. Like it, so much nostalgia playing Resident Evil 1 and 2 on PlayStation back in the day. It gives me that vibe, but these controls are better than Resident Evil 1 and 2. I mean, they're not it's not that bad. Like
Sure.
when you press down, the character turns around and walks towards the screen, doesn't walk backwards. So I don't know if maybe people are wanted that to be how it worked. I
You
was
know, it's
glad that it wasn't that way because I hate that.
it's funny that you bring up that exact aspect because as I was playing it a little bit more last night, I was actually paying attention to that, knowing that we were going to talk about it today, and I'm willing to bet that that's a huge part of the reason why it feels a little fumbly and uncomfortable for people is that specific thing. There's probably a couple other things too. But that specific thing, when you press down, like you're basically your character won't walk backwards. You cannot
Mm-mm.
make your character walk backwards in this game. And
Except when you have the camera up.
yeah, that's true. With the camera up, you definitely can. So when you're in third person, I'll say you definitely can't go backwards, and that's very counterintuitive to how a lot of like third party games or third person games are
Mm-hmm.
today. And you know, I made my short little video kind of discussing it too, and I definitely think that I agree that they're imperfect, but I think that was by design, and I'm sure it's one of the reasons that people struggle. But I do think that it's by design, and I agree with your assessment and your comparison about the old school Resident Evil games. It's actually something I regretted not bringing that up and giving you props for it when I did my little kind of review video because I thought that was so perfectly accurate and I didn't think about it until you said it. And that's probably one of the strongest points of the game to me.
Yeah, it's like if I guess if you didn't grow up playing horror games back in that era, you probably aren't going to like Fatal Frame as much.
Hmm.
Like somebody that didn't play those games, maybe. But like I said, for the game, pressing down, you turn around, and then she faces the screen. You hit the ZL, and then the
Yep.
camera flips around. It's a quick turnaround,
Hmm.
and it works better than any quick turnaround that, like in Resident Evil 4 or anything that I've ever experienced. So it actually works better for the game. And I think the other problem, people are so used to using that right analog stick to just turn the camera so quickly.
Yep.
This game actually works better when you just use the left stick. Let's say you're moving forward, and the characters walk slow intentionally. And even when they're running, they're not booking it.
Yeah, yeah. She's not Bayonetta.
She's running like a damn girl,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so using the left analog stick, you're holding up, you just go either left or right a little bit, and the character actually turns pretty quickly
Yep.
and moves like the flashlight and stuff. And so the
It's
right analog stick's I bumped the sensitivity all the way up, and
yep. Same here. Same here.
that kind of turns the camera when you're not moving. But when you're moving, I just use mostly the left stick to turn, and I don't turn the camera like you would in a
Not,
traditional third person. And once I
yeah.
figured that out, I'm navigating like a pro. Like
Sure.
I,
It's another thing I kind of referenced it too is it's definitely a game where I think that sort of cadence and that rhythm to the control is very purposeful because they want you to play this game at a certain pace. That's what makes the game, I think, the most effective and scary and like you really soak in the atmosphere and feel like you're a scared person in the woods. But there is, I think, that perfect sweet spot that if you take the time to learn it, you can learn what the controls want you to do and how to navigate that game. And I think so many people, and I'm guilty of this too. Like I struggled a little bit when I first started. Like we have a certain expectation when we put a controller in our hand and we're going to play a game with a third person. We want to run around. We want to move the camera around at our own pace. We want it to go fast. We want to turn around easily. And even if it's a scary game, like we want to move. We just want to move pretty fast. That's how a lot of games are. And like pretty quickly, if you learn that that's not how this game plays, and you just work within the confines of the pacing that the game is supposed to be played at, you will, like, just like you were saying, Terminator, you can navigate almost like a pro. It's still imperfect. I agree, it is imperfect, but it's not horrible, and it's not game breaking. I think if most people take the time to learn it.
Yeah, I actually think it added to the charm and the tension of the actual scary moments. And just for anybody who maybe download the trial or haven't done that yet, actually, if you like turn with the left stick and you try to turn with the right stick at the same time, they actually work against each other, and your character sometimes will like
Yep.
turn an opposite way you're not planning. So you actually, like I said, once you realize that when you're not moving, it's fine to look around a little bit, but when you're moving, just basically use the left stick to move forward and to turn, and then you can just barely nudge the camera a little bit to try to get the camera on a little bit. And
Yeah.
I,
The
I
camera stick has some function, like
yeah,
it still is usable and it has some value, but not the same as a game like Bayonetta.
yeah, it's a completely different experience, and I think it was designed intentionally to work like that, and I think it works well. And I didn't play any of the other Fatal Frames,
Yeah, me neither. Yeah, me
so
neither.
this is my first foray into that. So let's talk about the visuals, because I think it's one of the strongest elements of the game at times and one of the weakest elements of the games at other times. So
Sure.
what do you think so far, just from a whole the whole visual standpoint, from the technical part to the art direction, everything?
Yeah, I also think that's incredibly strong. I think that it's some of the best character models I've ever seen. At least this generation, I should say. It's really, really strong character models. They just look and feel great. The facial animations are terrible. They don't look good at all. The mouths are like totally cardboard, but they also probably, that might have had to do with the translation,
Mm-hmm.
from the Japanese over. So that kind of happens a lot. The environments, there are some times where they don't look great for sure, and sometimes things up close don't look awesome. Textures are okay, but I mean, as far as the art design, it's great. I think because it's very creepy and moody and atmospheric, and I think it's because it looks appropriate. And I just yeah, I love the character design. Like I said, the character models, their movement animation is great. The facial animation is terrible, but the environments look great. So
Yeah, I was like, I posted about 9 pictures on Meverse. Like I haven't done that for a game. Maybe I with Splatoon, maybe. But
mhm.
I'm in awe of a few separate things. First off, the water reflection and lighting
Yes. Oh, thank you
is
for bringing that up. Yeah.
is amazing. Like I posted a shot with Ren, the male character, and he was standing. It's like a room that has you. It's for some reason there's water in there, and there's a bunch of candles, and it was just reflecting off that. It looks amazing, and then the light from their actual like flashlights. It's a really dynamic light. What do they call it? Lighting engine.
Hmm.
It works really well. Yeah, they had to sacrifice some texture quality, but when you're walking through like the woods, they're very dense. Like there's
Yeah.
shrubs, there's trees. It feels full. It feels like a forest. And then when your light hits the foliage and stuff, it really isn't effective. Even though if you get real close and look, the textures aren't great, and some of the it'll be like it look like a tree, leaves and stuff. And if you got at the right angle, it's actually just a one dimensional. It's like flat.
Like a sprite. I think it's called. I think that's what a sprite is.
If
Yeah.
it would be like a picture of leaves, and if you're looking at it from the front, you see all the leaves. When you look from the side, it's just thin as a piece of paper.
Yeah.
There's a couple moments like that,
Sure.
but then they add fog. At times they add rain, and it's really
Yeah. The
just
rain looks good.
it's a very full, complete package. The aesthetic, everything goes well together, and
Well,
I think
and the rain you mentioned, it brings me reminds me of a really nice touch. You might have probably, I'm sure you've noticed this. How when it's is it Ryu the main character? I'm forgetting her name.
Yuri.
Yuri. That's it. Yeah, Ryu's the other girl. So Yuri. Like she's wearing like that kind of nightgown kind of thing that's
Mm-hmm.
like this flowy sort of thing. And when she gets wet or she's in the rain, it like sticks to her body, and it's like a
Yeah.
totally completely different looking piece of cloth,
Yeah,
and it
that's
just feels real.
that was a cool touch. I'm like, why does she look different? I couldn't figure it out at first.
Yeah,
And then
but
I was like, yeah, she looks more curvy or something now. And I
yeah,
was like,
you're like,
oh
wait,
wait,
why does she look better?
her
Oh, that's
outfit's like suction to her, like if you
because
were
she's wet. Yeah,
wearing wet clothes.
it's
And
when you see her dry again, you can notice
then
that
you're
that
like,
thing is
yeah,
flowing. Yeah,
I ain't gonna lie, it puts you in danger to walk around wet all the time, but
it's
I
true. It really,
I
it's
find myself not drying her off
yep.
sometimes.
It's where you're like, I think I can make it for a little bit here. Let's just leave things as it is.
But yeah, the character models are just adorable, gorgeous Japanese women, and
Hmm.
even the dude Ren is done fairly well. The hair is not it's not like they put a ton of emphasis on realistic hair or anything, so they made sacrifices where need be. But overall, everything I
It's
think looks
more
really
than
good.
appealing, I think, to anyone's eye. I can't imagine anyone would look at it, even if they hated the gameplay. I'm sure
Hmm.
they could be like, "Wow, that's a really good looking game."
Yeah, and so yeah, like I said, the fog, everything at times it gets foggy. It's just I'm impressive. I'm impressed, and it's not like I'm uh, typically a graphics whore enough or anything like that. But um, I wish I could share this screenshot I got on my phone that I posted to Twitter.
Mm.
It's it's like Yuri's standing at that shrine. It's got like lanterns on the side. It's got a stone walkway up to steps, and it's foggy. It just looks amazing. And then
Yeah,
her flashlight in her hands lighting her like face and everything up, and it's really cool. It's really well done. So
yeah.
uh, it works for the game, and it's definitely a big jump up from the last Fatal Frame on the Wii. Looked okay, but
Yeah,
a
but it
big
was a
jump.
Wii game. It is what it is.
So let's talk about the most important part
Hmm.
of any game, and that's the gameplay. Focusing on the ghost combat, battling ghosts with the camera obscura,
Hmm.
which the gamepad is used. You can just look at your TV. It gives you like a a, a white um,
A little
frame.
white, like, yeah, kind of
Yeah,
indicator of
so
where
you
your
can
game.
see. But the actual gamepad shows you, like if you got, when you hit a snapshot, it goes like parts break off, and if you get like five objects in the circle, then it's called like a shutter chance or whatever. It does a lot more damage.
That's
Um,
the secret to combat, by the way.
you
It's
got to be
that.
looking at the gamepad to see that.
Yeah, the gamepad shows basically the what the TV shows is nothing more than a first-person view with zero HUD. There's like
Mhm.
nothing there. Every piece of information you need to play that game with the camera and like have combat is all only on the gamepad.
Yeah, because you can switch your film type, you can switch lenses on the
You can
fly.
even see the life bar. I actually didn't even notice that until
I
like
still haven't
last night.
figured out where the life bar is.
It's when when you hold the left trigger to actually focus in on like someone's
Hmm.
face. When you do that, the reticule that like centers around them, it's got like the little kind of jars that fill up underneath. The
Hmm.
life bar is right underneath there, going around the bottom half of the
Okay.
circle.
So when
I
you're
didn't notice it till yesterday. It took me like a week of playing the game to see it,
and
and
when
it's
you hold
only.
the when you
Go
hold
ahead.
that button, it actually tracks the ghost for you, so you
Yeah,
don't have to constantly
yeah,
pan.
when you're in tracking mode, yeah, it does do that, and that is the only time you can see a ghost's life. You can't just look at them; you have to be focused in on their
Hmm.
face there. But it's there. I just saw it, so it's pretty helpful.
And the camera, like uh the orientation as you tilt the gamepad, it's like 1 to 1. There's like no
It
hesitation.
is. It's like as
You
good as Splatoon's.
and you can use the right analog stick to kind of help you turn, so you don't have to like turn all the way. Like you said, you use your office chair so you can turn all the way around, but you can
Hmm.
just use the right stick to get you back. It does a fairly good job of letting you know where the ghost is coming from. You'll see like red on the sides. Sometimes it's on both sides at the same time, so it's like,
Yeah,
okay,
that's
which one?
always fun.
I'll just pick one way. But so
Yeah.
how do you feel about that combat overall?
Yeah, overall, something else I spent a lot of time talking about. I think it's awesome. Like it's to me, it was the next to just being a horror game. Than the fact that I love horror games, it was the reason I was so excited to play this game. Was finally a game like this doing the kind of thing that the gamepad was made for, where a whole game's main mechanic is built around that, like Wonderful 101, for example. And I think it almost perfectly succeeds. It's definitely not perfect, and it's also has a very steep learning curve, I think. But it's great. Like Terminator Juice was saying, it really is pretty much 1-to-1. I think most people would agree. Splatoon's camera aiming is really, really precise, and it's about as precise as that is.
Hmm.
And sometimes things get like really hectic and frantic, and you got to move fast. And as hard as it can be to learn to do that, once you get good with it, that camera and the gamepad will pretty much get you where you need to go. And it feels really immersive. Like I love, because as Terminator was saying, I have like an office chair. It's like a computer chair here, so I can just swivel around 360 degrees, and I can be looking at something with my TV in front of me and just swivel around all the way behind me, and I can see the trees or the building behind me, and it really feels like you're in like a virtual world when you pull that thing up.
Hmm. It's
So I
almost like what is that, Google?
the is it Google Maps or
It's like a
I
Google Maps, but it has a different name on the Wii U that you
yeah
can.
I never had used it, but Google Street, isn't it called Google
Yeah,
Street?
Google Street. So if you wanted to go like downtown Denver at the Capitol building, then you can do a full 360 with your gamepad, and it's like it moves really like right with you. It's kind of
Yeah.
cool.
It's really neat. It's the kind of thing that is sort of delivering on a lot of the promises of the gamepad. And I've always said I still think the gamepad is great, and it's good to see a game like this coming out, may potentially near the end of the Wii U's life, and to have it be a really good example of what that can do in a creative team's hand. The combat is, I will say this and finish up so you can chat about it too. The combat is really deep. It's very hard to learn, and I think it is kind of like how some of the walking controls can be. For some people and some kinds of gamers, it might be difficult or weird enough for some people to tune into and maybe turn them off from it. But I like that it's really deep. There's a lot of customization, like TJ was saying, with like the lenses and the films that you're using. And there's a couple of different ways to get different kinds of shots on enemies that have different levels of damage and the fatal frame time and all these things. So there is a lot of variety to the combat. It is pretty hard to use though sometimes. So you really have to deal with that learning curve. But I like that it's so deep personally.
Yeah, there's definitely the ghost AI is pretty good too, because sometimes they just won't attack you until you snap a picture and your
Yep.
camera's reloading. Then they come at you for the.
Oh my, I swear at the game all the time when that happens. I'm like, God, you waited until the wrong time. I hate you, Ghost.
So
God,
I
it's so
find it
hard.
refreshing, the gameplay, the combat. It's unique. Since I've never played a Fatal Frame game, I was watching Girl Gamer Gab. Anybody that watches her playthroughs of, she did Fatal Frame 2 and 3 and 5 for sure. I haven't seen if she's done any others, but um, the old games, like, they're very, it looked like it was very similar structure. So I don't know. I guess if you had played them all, maybe this one felt too similar or something, because it seems like the same type of. They didn't stray too far from the core idea, but
Yeah, to my
um,
knowledge, I think that is the case.
yeah. So
Yeah.
and then the rest. I mean, I like the combat. I had it kind of. I didn't have it mastered, obviously, but I had a good feel for it by the end of the trial, and that's when I decided to buy the game, after I finished the trial version, and I was getting the hang of using the camera, and I was like, all right, I like this. So um, I guess the other gameplay would be snapping photos. At various times, a ghost will kind of appear, and you get like 5-6 seconds to bring the camera up, snap a photo. You get points
Hmm.
for that.
Yep.
Um, then
Yeah,
there's
that's a lot of fun too, because that also
yeah,
brings out some of the best scares in the game when you don't really expect that.
yeah, and then there's a whole holding ZR to like grab items and open doors, and it's purposely goes slow because
Hmm.
sometimes things jump out, a hand
It's
will come out,
great tension.
and
Great
yeah, you're
tension.
opening a door slowly, and then there's like a shadow of your hand from your flashlight on the wall in the room you're opening. You never know what's going to be on the other side of that. um, and exploring and finding items lying about in the environment. They kind of flash, they're pretty obvious. There's like a it's like a beacon of white light that flashes like a.
Yep.
And you pick that up, pick the stuff up. So there's exploration, which I love in games.
Yeah, and tell me if you agree with this. The game, all the locations and the maps that you go to are surprisingly pretty huge. Like
Hmm.
there's some places where it's like, oh my God, another path or another door.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I know I need to go the other way, but here's three paths down this way. And it's really not as linear as it could have been. And I
No, it's
really dig that.
I don't like open world games. I
Hmm.
just don't.
Sure.
I'm hoping, like I've always said, that Nintendo and with Zelda will show the world what open world games should be.
I think they will.
Uh, I like linear games that aren't just like, oh wait, a game like that would be dumb to like go to a menu and select. Even though you do kind of go to a menu and you say, all right, I'm going to go to drop 10, which is like chapter 10, but then you
Sure.
play that whole thing out. It's not like you're, um,
Yeah, you're not like warping into a
you know,
spawning into a certain area
once you
and
start the chapter, and some of them, it took me like an hour and a half.
mhm.
Then it's kind of, yeah, it starts you in a spot, and there's times where it's like, oh, don't go this way. You got to rescue a Mew or something. It will kind of limit you, but it doesn't feel just so linear that you're just moving forward and there's like an arrow telling where to go the whole time. If you get kind of questioning where you're going, then you hold the ZR button. If you have a photograph or object of a person, the character consents where somebody was, and you can kind of
You can
follow
follow
that.
that. Yeah, so you can't
Um,
get lost
so yeah,
very
you're not
easily.
getting
Although
lost.
I have gotten kind of lost a couple times, but
Couple
then you
times, yeah. It
you'll figure
still
it
it
out.
it didn't quite show me where I was too far away. It didn't even show me her ghost echo or whatever. But
Yeah.
so there's a lot of exploration and genuinely scary. So just overall very impressed with the game. I'm on the 10th chapter.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't know how many there are. It says like I'm at 36%, so I don't know.
Really?
I hope it's not 30 chapters because
I think
that's
it's like 13 or so to
okay.
my knowledge. But
I'm looking
that's just not a
forward.
quote.
The story is interesting. There's a lot of reading notes
Hmm.
for the story, and there's games where I'll just like speed read and skip stuff. I read every word. Like I'm just enthralled with the the whole subject matter, the mythology. Whether I'm wondering if like any of that is like true Japanese history with like the pillars where they actually seal women in boxes alive to like
Oh, like the way if the Shrine Maidens are based
because
that.
they're like spiritually strong and they're like good foundations for buildings and stuff like that's
Well,
creepy to me.
it
That's
is yeah, it's very kind of sadistic, but it does that element does certainly feel like something that could be based off of like a real legend or myth, you know.
Mhm. So yeah, so story is compelling so far. But I just wanted to get before we move on, as far as people always talking about, oh, I want a mature game, I want a mature game. A
Yeah.
lot of times that's like just unnecessary blood or swearing or sexual, like The Witcher 3's like full nudity and stuff.
Hmm.
But to me, this is the most mature game that I've ever encountered as far as the subject matter. Just on that level.
Because of
So
the themes of the women being
the
trapped in boxes and all that.
suicides,
Yeah. The suicide aspect is that's a huge that's the reason this story even happens.
yeah, it's all about this mountain where people go to commit suicide, and then you find out kind of what's drawing them and some of the stuff that had happened. And there's some massacres and stuff. And to me, like
It's a
that's
pretty
way more,
brutal thing, yeah.
talking about suicides and stuff like that's way more of a mature subject matter than boobs. So
Well, unfortunately for a lot of today's people, the only thing that probably qualifies as mature is blood and boobs,
mhm.
and those are mature things. I mean, absolutely, and
Well, it's
more often in
rated
a game.
rating wise, those are mature, but as
Yeah,
far as it's kind of to me, that's kind of an immature. Anybody
immature maturity.
from like 13, maybe even earlier, likes
Yeah.
boobs. It's like that's childish maturity to me.
Yeah,
Um,
I totally see what you're saying, and I definitely, even as somebody who has no problem with those things in my games either, I definitely can agree with you if you're gonna compare the two. And it's nice seeing a game that is willing to tackle these themes and these aspects, of life and the more adult kind of ideas or challenges and issues that people face, in a different way in a video game setting. Like it's still a video game,
mhm.
but to have that as the driving force to the story, I think is fascinatingly interesting. So I'm just like you. I mean, other than Metroid Prime, I haven't played too many games where I want to read everything, but I definitely enjoy reading all the notes in this game, every single one of them.
Yeah, I think that was a shock to me. Like I was like, man, there's
You
a
got
bunch of
Terminator Juice reading. This is
there's a
crazy.
bunch of notes. Like I didn't realize it said notes updated, and I had gone like 4 or 5 chapters before I caught that, and I was like, what are
Yeah.
the notes? So you hit Y, and it takes you to your item screen. But if you go over, use the right analog stick to hit over to the right, you go to your notes.
Mm-hmm.
Those are additional information. It's like there's also other things that basically just retread what you already learned or something. But the notes actually give you new information and different information. So I
Really?
actually
I don't think
went
I've seen
through.
those. Yeah.
I went through because it says new. Like when you go to your item, you use your item before you click on when you just hit the Y button.
Mm-hmm.
There's like items, then there's collection and tokens. Yeah, tokens are the things
Yeah.
you need to
So
trace somebody.
yeah,
So
when you have
anytime
to
you
take
get
a picture and
something
follow.
new, it shows like it'll say new in like it looks like yellow reddish color uh next to like the word tokens, next to the word items, and what I say, notes. So then you
Mm-hmm.
go to the notes category, and then you see all the new next to all the ones you haven't read. And I went through literally for about a half hour, and I read every one of those notes to catch up.
That's crazy.
Like,
Well, there's a lot of mythology and lore that the game is building
mhm.
on, you know, and I kind of discussed this a little bit in my thing too, and I think you would watch that, but I have a theory that the basics of this story really is based on a Japanese kind of legend that seems to exist. It's something that my girlfriend randomly brought up and made me aware of probably like 3 or 4 weeks ago before the game even came out. Just random conversation, I think. She mentioned something about it, and this idea of on Mount Fuji there is something in real life. This is a real thing. It's called the Suicide Forest, and it's a forest
Mhm.
that people apparently go to kill themselves, and they're drawn there, and all these different things. And by coincidence, there's a movie coming out with I can't remember the ad. It might be Amanda Seyfried, it might not be her, but there's a film coming out that's a horror film, and it's called I think The Forest, and we just saw the trailer for that, and it's like, oh wow, this is like based on that Suicide Forest legend. And then Fatal Frame comes out, and I start playing it, and she's watching me play it, and it's like, wow, this is like the same thing again.
Mhm.
So it's really neat that they seem to be, and it could just be coincidence, but it seems like it's playing off of that real kind of myth that exists in Japanese culture. And so it feels that much more tangible and kind of freaky for that reason.
Yeah, it's genuinely unsettling and scary. I don't
Mm-hmm.
I'm not one of those people that gets scared from movies or video games. Like a noise in real life to me is 100 times scarier than any movie I've ever seen. Like I've heard some things and you know,
You've never been scared in a movie. Come on, man.
no, it's
Come
just
on.
to me. I'm
Really?
usually laughing or scary movies in general. To get people in those situations, most of the time they got to make the people so stupid and do something
Yeah.
so dumb.
And
I
that's
just can't.
true.
I can't get over it. So scary movies to me are dumb. Like the only movie that truly affected me and scared's the only word I can think of is when I saw Seven for the first time.
That was a great movie.
Like, because that's real world. Like that's
Yeah.
just like a psychopath. Like that's to me is scary. Like uh, jump scares and all that cheap tricks in movies just doesn't work on me. So
Sure.
Fatal Frame, I'm not like so scared. Like, but it was creepy when you find that VHS and the dude, guy or girl, I can't remember, is going through that house, the veiled
Yeah, it
house.
was a girl, and oh my gosh, that was
It's like
so
a home
so
video, and they
scary.
put that was genuinely that was probably as scarier than any scary movie I'd ever seen. Like that was more well done in
That
my
was
opinion.
very well, yeah, it's very well directed and choreographed kind of moment with that
Yeah.
thing. And there's a lot of I love finding all like the old video kind of clips of different things. That feels really eerie, really
So
eerie. I
yeah,
love it.
we spent a lot of time on Fatal Frame. We
Yep.
better move this along.
Okay.
So just to be a little more open and not just Nintendo focused, I'm curious uh, as right now I only have the Wii U, but I'm curious your thoughts. You said you beat Halo 5, I believe you said.
Sure did.
Um, I don't know if you plan on doing a video about it if you don't want to ruin that, but
I
I
mean,
just
I might, but I don't mind talking
I
about
haven't
stuff.
talked to anybody about it who's played it yet,
Hmm.
so I watched Zero's review, and he kept using the word Nintendo polish as describing the game, the
Okay, I can see. Okay.
controls,
Hmm.
and just the art style, everything. He kept saying Nintendo polish like as his highest praise. So I'm wondering your take on it. Do you feel like it's a well polished game, and then we'll get into like the online and stuff um, after that.
Sure. Yeah. So it's definitely like I guess when he says the Nintendo polish, I can see where he's coming from. If it's a polished game, yes, absolutely, I can say it's a polished game. But that's kind of not a surprise. I mean, it should be a polished game. It's like Microsoft's baby. It's the Xbox's like real reason for hopefully seeing sales success. It's the first party thing, and it's got a huge budget, so it better be polished. And it is really really polished. And it does have, like he said, that Nintendo level feel of polish. But what I'll say about that is, at least as far as my opinion goes, that's not new for Halo. I think most Halo games have that level of polish, and it's one of the things that's just for me kept me such a fan of it. Halo 4, especially. To tell you the truth, some people may disagree. I think 343 has been killing it with the Halo games. I mean, obviously, Master Chief Collection had online issues because that was porting old games, so I don't totally put that all in their ballpark. I think that was just a lot of different things made that thing fall apart online.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as the two games they've created from the ground up, Halo 4 and Halo 5, they are some of the most polished games I'd ever played. So yeah, Halo 5 is super super polished. It's very beautiful, even though it doesn't look as next gen as like what I expect like Uncharted 4 to look like, for example. Like it still looks like a slightly better version of Halo 4 or Halo Reach visually, but the art design and the visual design, like we talk about a lot of Nintendo games, that's really really impressive. You go to some really cool areas. There's a lot going on with the story. The campaign isn't as long as I was hoping, so I was a little bit disappointed with that. Do you want me to kind of talk about some of the
No,
things that good? Okay.
I'll cut you off. And first off, I don't know if you know that for Halo 4, Microsoft and 343 hired the
Yep.
lead art designer from Retro Studios.
I sure did. And I think
Okay.
that did you play Halo 4 yourself?
I did not, but it looked like a Metroid Prime to me.
That's what I was going to say. The new race of beings that they introduced in Halo 4 that are also in Halo 5, along with like the locations and planets that
Hmm.
those guys are from, are very reminiscent of the Metroid Prime feel, both in like the aliens design and the world's design. So you could feel the retro studio influence, along with like a new team 343 making Halo games. You can feel it, and I think it's a huge part of to why those games are great, and they kind of help Halo feel fresh. Like I loved all the Halo games, but even I can admit they were very formulaic after the first three games.
I thought 3
So,
was terrible. I couldn't even finish it. I
oh
just
really?
thought it was.
I like three. It's probably my least favorite down there with Halo 2, but I still like those games. Halo 1, Halo Reach, and 4 and 5 to me are just fan freaking tastic.
Yeah,
So
3 to me felt like it was one of the worst looking Xbox 360 games.
yeah, I agree. It didn't look
It
as
was
good as I think we were
terrible.
hoping.
I didn't never played 2.
It's
One
okay.
one started out promising, then it just became a generic corridor, and you get like they ran out of time. The game hit they
Yeah.
had to launch, and you could tell they had to wrap it up. So basically, you had to go in that ship with all these confusing hallways, and then you had
And
to
then you had
come
to get
out,
out. Yeah.
and it was like it. I never wanted to play it again after that,
See, for the
and
time though, like that kind of a design, I don't think many gamers could notice. When you put it through the scrutiny of time, like I
I knew
definitely
it
agree.
as I was playing it. I was
Oh,
thinking
okay.
about it, but then I played that after I played Metroid Prime,
Oh, really? Oh, dude, you've been missing out.
so it couldn't live up to Metroid Prime to me. It was just so much. It was better. Obviously, they didn't have the online component, or
Yeah, but
not
it
online, but
wasn't meant to. The multiplayer.
the multiplayer. But
Yeah.
after playing Metroid Prime, Halo was pretty disappointing, especially with all the hype.
Yeah, I
Um,
can. If you went from Prime, I mean, I love Halo, man, but if you went from Prime, the best game ever made, to
yeah,
Halo, you definitely downgraded. As good as Halo is, you downgraded.
yeah.
So
The
I
only
can get
thing
it.
I thought I was a little envious of, like I wish Nintendo could pull this off, was the chatter amongst the Spartans. Just
Oh
was
yeah.
funny to me.
Hmm.
Other than that, the game was forgettable for me. So I
See, and if
tried.
I don't want to get too sidetracked, but if I can tell a story about that is when part of the reason I love Halo and have nostalgia for it is when the first Halo came out, my buddy he got an Xbox like launch, the first Xbox and had
Hmm.
Halo, and like Halo was all the talk of the town, and it had only been out probably a couple of weeks before me and some friends went over to his place. He was living with his girlfriend at the time. I'm pretty old, so me and my friends all had apartments in 2001.
Hmm.
So he was living with his girlfriend, and we went over to check out his new Xbox, and we were checking out this brand new game, Halo. What's to do with Halo? And when we started playing it, and it's like, wow, okay, we're both playing together. We're not fighting each other like in Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter. We're like playing a first person game on the same side. and there's all these other AI soldiers running along with us, and they're kind of chattering and bullshitting with each other as we're all fighting the same objective in a mission. Like that was really new in 2001. Like it's so old school today, but in 2001 it was super
Yeah,
fresh and it blew our minds.
that was the only that and the music, the only things that stood out to me.
Sure. Again,
So
you did downgrade. We hadn't
yeah,
played no Metroid Prime. We did it when before Metroid Prime came out. So to us, it was like we spent 2 weeks. I'd go over to his apartment every day, and for 2 weeks we played through to beat that game. And we would trade off controllers, and it's
and
probably one of my favorite memories.
you're playing with that big ass controller too.
Yeah, as we called the hamburger controller.
Mhm.
Yeah, we sure did. But it was totally worth it. In 2001, it was worth it. So.
Yeah, I mean it's not a bad game. I think I put it in the series in my top 5 most overrated series of all time, but I don't think it's a bad series.
Mm-hmm.
I think the games I played, I only played 1 and 3.
Yeah.
I think they're decent to good, but I think most people have them hyped up to just ridiculous proportions. But that's just my personal feeling.
See, it's weird because I love them so much. I think they're excellent games, but it's all about how you look at them. Like I still take Halo games at face value. Like it's a sci-fi shooter. It's a really good sci-fi shooter, and it gets no deeper than that. That's what it is,
Yeah,
and it's excellent for that. But other than, especially with 4 and 5, well, maybe that's a spoiler, maybe that's not. They build up this relationship with Master Chief and Cortana that to
hmm
me is like Spielberg quality character writing. So that was a great surprise with 4 and why it's still my favorite game. But other than that, they are just sci-fi shooters with that slight little extra effort on the character development.
yeah. And the other thing I couldn't get over was um, just the ridiculous amount of bullets it takes in the online to kill people, and it just felt like
Yeah.
it felt like since it takes that many bullets, then why even like it just felt like
Why
to
fight
me
people? Like,
it just felt like it was too difficult to get kills, and I'm sure there's people that are good and you get headshots and all that, but it just felt in the character I didn't like the floaty jumping and stuff.
mm-hmm.
So it just never it didn't feel like when I played Call of Duty online for the first time, that felt like GoldenEye 2.0. That felt like
Yeah,
everything I loved about GoldenEye. Here it is. It's even better. It's on. I'm playing with my friends again, even though
sure.
we were online. Halo never made me feel like that. So, um,
Sure, I can see that. It's not. I've never really like praised Halo's online, so for some of those same reasons. I mean, I enjoy it, and I've been playing Halo 5 online, and I have been enjoying it. But to me, I don't know. The first Halo was great for its multiplayer because that was again new at the time. We didn't
mhm.
even need online to have fun
Yeah, LAN
back in
parties
those
is all it
days.
had.
Oh, the LAN parties, dude! You speaking my language. We spent so much time doing that, and that was a great revolution. I think that was like a watermark. Was it watershed? What the hell? I don't know. Hallmark moment in
Hmm.
gaming was how Halo created that sort of in-person LAN party culture for a good couple of years.
Yep.
But other than that, as far as how even the multiplayer holds up today, it's not the best. It's just okay. It's the story I think that makes Halo what it is, and the campaigns. Those are really good.
Yeah, I wish I was a little disappointed to hear like 5 to 7 hours, depending on cutscenes and stuff. For the
Yeah, and I'd say that's pretty true. It is a really good campaign. I will say that they absolutely horribly lied in their marketing campaign, and that was probably the biggest thing that really made me angry about the campaign. Other than
Right.
that, the story is very good and the missions are awesome, but man, they sold us on a very false promise.
Yeah, I watched the ending and I was like, "Oh, that's the ending." Like,
Yeah, well, the ending was like Halo 2 times 10. Well, you said you didn't play Halo 2, but I will also say this isn't totally spoilers for anyone who might care. My biggest gripes of the game is one, they sold the game on a completely false marketing campaign.
like you're talking about
Uh,
where the Master Chief they're like tracking down the Master Chief, because that's what I take from the
so that
advertising.
happens. Do you remember the two short little trailers, the first ones that were live action that were like mirroring each other?
Yeah,
So let's just say the entire essence of what those two things were saying is like not at all a part of the game. Like I couldn't believe how false those two things were.
I
Um,
tend to when I see live action trailers for video games,
yeah,
that tends to put the arrow towards no buy when I see that. Like
really.
that's the biggest red flag for me. Like there's something wrong if that's in my opinion, if that's the choice they're making for their ad campaign. So
I see what you're saying. To me, if they had delivered on the story promise that those things had, I would have been totally fine with it. I actually was beyond excited when I saw those. I was like, "Oh my god, this is like what is really happening with these two guys? Like
mhm.
what the hell is happening with the Master Chief? Like why?" And none of that was even important. It like wasn't even happening. It was after two missions that shit's out the window. It doesn't even matter. I was so upset about that.
It's like when they make a movie based off a video game and they don't use any of the story or any
Yeah,
real elements
characters or anything, yeah.
from the game.
But it
But
would have been like, let's say you saw the trailer for Jurassic World and there was one dinosaur in it. That would have been basically what this felt like. I was like,
yeah.
what? Only one dinosaur? I thought it was a world of dinosaurs, you know? The other thing is to wrap it up real quick is the ending, although not a bad ending, it wraps up none of the plot threads. It like, which Halo's 3, Reach, and 4 very much did. They kind of sequel baited you, but they still wrapped up the stories that were happening within those games. This game has about 2 or 3 plot threads going through the whole thing, and absolutely zero of them are completed by the time this game is
So
over.
they pulled a Prometheus, is what you're saying.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, very much.
All
And
right.
I
So
like Prometheus, but yes, it still was the same thing.
I liked it till I watched it a few more times and it started to fall apart for
Yeah,
me.
I think
But
I heard you say that
yeah, we
somewhere.
talked
So,
about that.
oh yeah, yeah.
So finally, just real quick, does the online work in Halo 5?
Yeah, the online's great. The online's absolutely great. It's very seamless. I have like no connection
All
issues,
right.
and it's fun. Yeah,
So that's good.
yeah, yeah. So 343 fixed every issue like they promised.
And do you think how big of impact do you think this game will have on Xbox One sales for the rest of this year and maybe the generation? Do you think?
I don't think it's gonna. I don't think we live in too much of a world where many games affect a whole generation. Nintendo's games do. I think Splatoon and Smash Brothers, those can sell consoles for a while. But even a game like this, I don't think can impact a generation. I do think it's going to have a huge impact in sales for a while through the holiday, through maybe even till next holiday when they have to sell us on a whole brand new slate of holiday games. I think Halo is good enough and popular enough to do that. Apparently, it had the biggest launch of all time, right? Like $500 million or whatever.
No, it was the biggest launch for Halo.
Was it just for Halo?
Yeah, it
Okay,
only sold
that's
it sold
still a
like
pretty big deal, though.
it sold like a million. I saw a rumor it was like 1.2 to 1.5 million in the first week
Copies.
copies, and GTA
Gotcha.
sold 12 million, so it's not even close
That's
to.
crazy. Yeah, I mean it's a console exclusive, so I'm still going to consider that pretty darn successful. But so yeah, maybe it didn't do as big as I initially thought, but I
Yeah,
think that yes, it's going to help. And it's the kind of game if somebody told me like I'm a huge Halo fan and I've been waiting for an Xbox, or I'm kind of an Halo fan but I've been really waiting for a reason to buy an Xbox, I would say you probably will like Halo 5 enough to say yes, this is a time to buy it. If you're not
and
on board with Halo, still probably you can wait.
one of the other deceiving numbers Microsoft threw out was their 20 million Xbox One shipped to stores. And
Really?
according to VG charts, it's at 14 million sold.
I just saw that recently.
So, and I was like, man, there's really like 8 million Xbox Ones in stores. Well, something just happened that kind of lends to that being true. Is Microsoft just sponsored these bundles? They're called holiday bundles. Target took it a step further. They added like a $50 Target card.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, you get a one. There's a bunch of them, but the one I was looking at is a 1 terabyte Xbox One with Ori and the Blind Forest digital,
Mm.
Gears of War Ultimate, which comes with all the Gears 1 through 3, I think.
Oh, okay.
It didn't say digital or physical. Rare replay, any additional retail game of your choice, so Halo 5 if you want, and then a $50 Target gift card for $400.
Wow.
That's the 1 terabyte. They had a 350 version for the 500 gig, and it's all sponsored by Microsoft. It's across the board. Best Buy has a Newegg. They all have it, and Microsoft is
Sponsoring it.
putting these
Well,
bundles out, and that
yeah, I
kind
mean
of
they're
lends me to believe that there really is that many Xbox Ones sitting in stores.
waiting to
Um,
be sold for the
yeah, they
holidays
need to
and
sell them. So, because that's a pretty generous.
no,
Because the
I'm
one,
gonna straight up say that's a great deal. I mean, there's basically at $400, there's effectively a lot of free stuff in there. Even though a regular Xbox One is 350, there's so much stuff there. Like that's a
well,
good
this is the
value.
1 terabyte. The regular, the
Oh yeah,
350, the
yeah, yeah,
500.
yeah.
So, and by the time you get 6 games installed with the Xbox, you're almost out of
Yeah,
space.
yeah. We had that conversation. You know, Terminator was asking me the last couple of weeks about space on the PS4 and Xbox One, and I will tell you, I like my Xbox One more than my PS4, but it does not hold space well, man. Not at all. Way worse than the PlayStation 4.
Yeah,
So that's
so
going to use up a lot of space. You're right.
the other alternative would be like you could buy the Tomb Raider, Rise of the Tomb Raider Definitive Edition bundle for 400, and that's all you get. So basically, you're getting Gears, Ori and the Blind Forest, Rare Replay, any other game. I mean, like I said, you could pick Halo 5, Tomb Raider. I don't know if they'll still be available when Tomb Raider comes out, and a
Mm-hmm.
$50 gift card.
Well, Tomb Raider is like in a week. That's a couple days. That's on Tuesday,
Oh
right?
yeah, okay.
Same
So if
day.
you
Same day as
waited,
Fallout. Yeah.
so then I was like, I was thinking, I just had to, I was short on my escrow
Oh,
adjusts every year. Last year I was 300 over.
mm.
This year I was
You get a
400.
refund last year.
This
Yeah.
year I was 400 under, so I had to pay
Oh,
for. I
bummer.
just had to send out a check for 400. But I
There
was
went your
like,
Xbox.
yeah, I was thinking I'd get Halo 5 and sell that for 50, um, and maybe Gears and or Rare Replay for like 30 or 20, whatever. And then I could end up getting the system for about 300, and then have a $50 gift card to go towards Tomb
Yeah.
Raider.
Man, sounds good.
That's like
Sounds
that's a
good.
pretty good deal, but it's still not worth it for me because then I gotta actually with Tomb Raider I wouldn't have to buy the gold membership. So um, that's
I,
the closest I've ever been to actually figuring out
I
what it
gotta
would.
say, and I don't want to play the devil's advocate, man, but I think that you're getting close to prime position to owning an Xbox. I think you
Yeah,
should look at something like that is a really good deal, and I
it
won't tell you
is.
what to do with your finances, but I certainly will say that that's a worthy thing to kind of jump on with all those trades. You know?
Yeah, that's the only thing I'd have to. I wouldn't use eBay because they take like a cut, so I'd like post on Craigslist like Halo 5 new sealed $50 and see if it would have to. I'd actually have to be able to sell that for it to work out the way I want, and
Sure.
then it would depend on if Gears Ultimate is physical or digital.
Yeah,
Whether
that's that's a tough call.
because I have Gears of War on my 360 with backwards compatibility, can play that
Yeah.
one, two, and three, which I have, so I'm not worried about that. So I mean, it's just something I've been. It just I think yesterday they just announced those bundles. So anyway, that's enough Xbox talk for one podcast.
Terminator's done with the Xbox.
The thing's just so ugly. I don't even know where I'd put it. That's kind of the thing that's stopping me.
It's not a pleasing console, but I
Yeah.
mean I got the white one, and I think the white one looks pretty snazzy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Yoshi's Woolly World because
Yeah, yeah.
um,
No
I
one's talking about it.
there's a few Twilight Bites did a video and I agreed with everything he said. Like, there's no reason to sleep on this game. It's a Nintendo fully polished, fully as much content as you expect from a 2D platformer for $50.
Mhm.
Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze was the same price. I think it parallels Donkey Kong almost perfectly. Like, um, looks beautiful, great music, amazing controls, good difficulty, and it ramps up.
Yes,
Um,
it does. Holy crap.
so it's got everything a 2D platformer fan would want, and it has probably one of the cleanest and most eye eye-catching art styles I've ever
Mhm.
seen in a 2D platform. It just everything about it looks amazing, and all the little details.
Have you beaten it yourself, or where are you at with it?
I'm on level. I just played level 4-3 with the giant fish guy, and
Oh yeah, we're like at the exact same
I
spot.
was
I'm
uh I was
early
happy
in
to
World
get to
War.
the end of that level like alive. Like I
Yeah.
wasn't just trying to collect everything by that point. I'm just trying to make it to the end
Yeah,
alive.
you mean the big fish guys that keep jumping out from the water,
Yeah,
right?
they're
Yeah.
like green. Yeah.
And they'll swallow you, and yeah,
Hmm.
very, very difficult.
Yeah. So I think there's 6 worlds total, and
Mhm.
3 was tricky, but I could get by the level fairly easily. It was just trying to find everything that was getting hard. 3S, if you unlock that special level, that's a nightmare, but I beat
Oh, how do
that.
you unlock those? I haven't done any of
You
those, I
got to
don't
get
think. All the
all 5 of the flowers in every level on each world, and then it
Gotcha.
unlocks the special level. So it's like the
Ah,
K levels
damn
in
it,
Donkey Kong.
Nintendo. I always got to go back and do something else every time.
That's why I just collect them all the first time and then
Yeah.
move on to the next level. So because otherwise you're missing out on some really challenging levels. So
Yeah.
but yeah, overall, I'm like. if anybody loved Tropical Freeze, if anyone claims to be a platforming fan, I know there's been a lot of people saying that over the years, and then they're not buying Yoshi's Woolly World, then kind of exposing yourself. I mean, if you're truly a platforming fan, and
Yeah, I mean,
you can't say you're tired of them, because literally since Donkey Kong, we've had Mario Maker. Because I don't count Kirby as a 2D platformer. I count that as a side-scrolling
mm,
action adventure.
it's kind of a gray area there.
Because
I
there's no
could.
jumping. It
It's
doesn't control
true.
like a
The
platformer. So
control kind of makes it a little bit different. Like I guess I still sort of in my eyes I think of it as a platformer, but you're right. There's no real jumping, and that kind of does change the game a
yeah.
little bit. It's a gray
So
area.
and a lot of people skip that. So literally, it's been a year and a half, and then we got Mario Maker and Yoshi's Woolly World. Mario Maker, the level creation is such a time consuming, like so much of that game that it doesn't feel like, oh, it's just another 2D platform, because the creation part, the gameplay involved in that is so unique and different to me.
Sure.
I count Yoshi's Woolly World as like the first true 2D platformer since Tropical Freeze. So
Hmm.
people who say they're burnt out on it, I can't buy it. I can't buy that
Yeah,
logic.
I mean, now they could be playing, they could be considering other systems too. But if you're just talking about Nintendo and
Well,
they're,
a lot of people say the Nintendo's gotten too many platformers. We don't need any more platformers.
oh
It's
yeah,
like,
no, well that's
well,
obviously
when
crap.
if you're counting Shovel Knight or Rayman Legend, you're counting other third parties. Nintendo, they're gonna put out a Mario platform. They're gonna put out, Donkey Kong, and then a
Yeah.
Yoshi game. So I mean,
Well, and they should.
literally,
They always sell well. I mean, they have no reason to stop doing them. And what's great is all these different kinds of platformers they put out are so vastly different.
hmm
Like, what are all the Nintendo platformers on the Wii U? There's New Super Mario Brothers. Okay, that's we know what that is. There's Mario 3D World, which is 3D. There's Super Mario Maker, which is a creation game. There's Kirby, which is a touchscreen claymation game. There's Yoshi, which is a yarn Yoshi game, and then there's Donkey Kong Country, with its own co-op thing. Like they're all so vastly different. Other than being colorful, they're all pretty different in a lot of different ways.
especially Yoshi has the eggs, the
Yeah,
aiming
the
the
aiming,
eggs
that's a
mechanic.
completely different mechanic. Yeah, it's a completely different mechanic than any, because you don't just like throw forward for anyone who hasn't played that game. Like you're dealing, what is that? What would you call it? Like a, not a fulcrum, but like you have this like pivot point where he aims up or down and you have
hmm
to select when you're going to throw it. And it adversely changes the gameplay, but it definitely doesn't ruin it. It keeps it feeling very, very new. And it's actually really fun because you have to aim very precisely while also
Moving,
platforming.
sometimes you're dodging things while you're aiming and throwing, and
Yeah.
um
Have you tried that with the motion control, by the way? Have you tried that?
I haven't.
I'm
I've
curious
seen
how that
people do it,
is.
and it seems to be pretty quick. But I'm fine with it the way it is, whether it's harder or easier.
Yeah, I've had no problems with it. I think it's great.
So how do you feel about my comparison to Tropical Freeze? I know it's a different style of
Hmm.
gameplay and different visual art design, but just for me, it feels like it hits all the same check marks. Um,
Yeah,
was it-
I was thinking about that as you said it. And in terms of like the quality and the polish, I definitely agree. And it follows like some, like very standard staples that Nintendo puts in a lot of their games, and especially when you compare these two games directly, there's a world that has its own theme and a bunch of levels within that world, and you beat that world and its theme, and then you move on to the next one. So they're
I was
very
just
similar.
saying more of excellent music, tight controls, the difficulty, and a good art style. I
Oh
wasn't
yeah.
getting in depth with the actual
Oh, okay,
gameplay.
gotcha. Yeah, in that respect, I definitely agree. They're both beautiful. They both have fantastic music. One thing that disappoints me with Yoshi's music is they repeat some of the same songs a little too often, which is
Yeah,
too bad. And from to my recollection, I think Donkey Kong didn't really repeat any music, but the quality of the music's really great. And when you do get new tunes in Yoshi, they're fantastic. The control is awesome. I do feel like Donkey Kong maybe has a little bit more content to it. I think there's more levels and more worlds. But it's still, yeah. I mean, I definitely can say, building on what Donkey Kong did, they applied a lot of that to Yoshi, and it's awesome. I'm loving the game. It's also I will say that some people may like this, some people may not. I think Yoshi takes a little bit longer to get difficult, so it's kind of a more generous learning curve. I think way earlier in Donkey Kong, the levels start to get harder. Yoshi, for about the first world and a half or two worlds, is pretty easy to get through, and then they really start ramping up the difficulty in World 3, kind of like you were saying. And now you and I are both in World 4, and there are like swearing moments in that game, serious swearing moments now. And I was like, this game is too cute to be so hard, but I still keep yelling at it.
Yeah,
So
I think if you would have unlocked the S levels, you would have felt like the difficulty ramped up quicker.
sure.
And because finding all the things in each level actually, to me, is I can't move on like from a world if I don't have all that. Because I
Hmm.
don't. To me, the enjoyment of playing a platformer isn't just getting to the end of the level. Like to me, that's the downer part. Like, oh, I got to the end. I want
Yeah,
to
I hear
stay
you.
in this level. I like the exploration. I like finding all the hidden items and stuff. So, and then when you find all five of the yarn bundles, it creates a new color scheme Yoshi.
Which is
That's
pretty fun. Yeah.
yeah, and they're really cool. Some of them are just amazing. So, um, I just think, like I said, anybody that claims to be a fan of 2D platformers or platformers in general that isn't considering this game, and I can understand people maybe haven't picked it up right away just for financial reasons or whatever.
Maybe
Um,
didn't feel like a priority for a lot of
there's no
people.
excuse for a fan of platformers to not have Yoshi's Woolly World.
Yeah, it's just as good as any good platformer that's released lately at all. Like it really is fantastic. And I'm just glad that it started to get creative because the first world doesn't really feel that way. It's pretty like simple and generic and like okay, I'm just going and jumping and throwing the yarn. And it's like a clever mechanic, but it didn't really feel new or fresh to me at first, other than the visual style. But man, after like probably maybe near the end of World 2, if you sort of agree with that or not, it seemed like that typical Nintendo creativity where you're always running into new things and new ways to play and a new way to traverse a level. All of a sudden that stuff started to come out in full force. And I was really happy because at first I was like, well, this is just pretty good. It doesn't seem like a normal great Nintendo platformer, but I ate my words after Another World because that stuff really started to come out in force.
I felt that when I unlocked World 1S and played it.
Yeah.
Feels that took the mechanic and everything to a whole new level. And I thought 2-1 for me, that's where it hit. I thought 2-1 was unique with the flowing like fabric. It was like waves
Oh,
almost,
yep, yep,
and
yep,
the
yep.
music was like that guitar. It was just
Kind of
like
like
that.
electric guitar sort of thing.
It wasn't electric. It's kind of like a folky. I
Oh, okay,
thought
I
it
know
was
that
like an
one.
acoustic like guitar, and
There is like a rocky sort of
there's a
tune that
rock one
happens
on
too.
like the lava looking world level.
Yeah,
But 2-1, 1S and 2-1 to me, like that's when it got started getting good and it hasn't stopped. So
yeah,
the
it's
only
awesome.
the only minor complaint, I said this on my impressions on my podcast, was the overworld controls of Yoshi are just they just feel wrong. Like
You know what
controlling
I?
Yoshi in the overworld is really difficult. It
Yeah,
doesn't
which
feel
luckily doesn't matter because you can't get
no,
hurt or anything.
it just doesn't feel right. It's like I'm glad this isn't a 3D game because if it controlled like this, it'd be terrible.
You know what I think it is, and tell me if you think that I'm remembering this right or not. But I feel like in the overworld, it is 3D controls like you said, but I think that that's in 30 frames, and I think the game is in 60 when you're in a level. So I feel like you when you go back and forth between like 30 frames and then 60 frames, like the control, it'll feel different because it looks different as you're playing, maybe like subconsciously. Does that
Yeah,
sound right to you, or am I remembering
I
that
I
wrong?
can't. I would be. I know the game's in 60. I don't know about the overworld. I don't know why it wouldn't be. Just maybe because it's in 3D. But there's not that much more going on. It feels like they made it. It's moving in 3D, but they made it like designed it for the D-pad. Like they didn't put a lot of effort into it. It just
Hmm.
doesn't feel quite right. Like sometimes I have a hard time going directly where I want to go to get to like say I want to go to level 3-6 and after I restart you got to go to the world 3 and then I'm starting at 3-1 and I'm kind of moving up and it just feels slightly off. It's not
Huh.
a big deal, but it's the only complaint I could think of. So
Well, now I'm going to probably focus on it every time I play
yeah.
and really dissect it. I'll be like, Terminator ruined this for me. But yeah, I mean, at least it is the overworld, so no one's trying to kill you there.
No, no. So that's it for Yoshi. I mean, it's an excellent game. It's a contender for my game of the year for me personally. But I haven't played. You know, I don't have any other current gen systems, so I haven't played anything else this year. So take that
Yeah.
with
I
into
will
consideration.
say, I will say it could make it to my top 10, and I'm someone who does play on all platforms. And there definitely will be quite a few Nintendo games in my top 10. So Yoshi has a really good chance. But I will say if we're going to talk platformer specifically, and you actually brought this game up a little bit ago, a game that any platformer fan should play, and I'm sorry to bring up a non-Nintendo game, it is Ori and the Blind Forest, because that is like a top 3 contender for me personally.
Mhm.
Any platformer fan, a lot of Nintendo fans, I think, would even like that game because of just the visual style, and it's very much like a Metroid game with like this foresty nature kind of story going on. It's absolutely breathtaking, fantastic game. So like that and Yoshi just knocking it out of the park for platformers this year.
Yeah, I could pick up Ori on my Xbox or my computer if I wanted my
Oh,
PC,
that's right. It's on Steam. Dude, please
but
play that game. Like, I think I'd really like to hear your thoughts. I think you'd like it.
I probably will. I just got an old 360 wired controller on my PC, so
Mm.
I don't know. I'm sure it'd be fine. I guess I thought if I ever got an Xbox One or something, I'd play it on that, but we'll see.
Yeah.
So next up, final topic, really, um,
Final topic.
the Star Wars trailer, and we got. I don't know if you saw the new Japanese trailer that hit yesterday.
No, that is one I'm sticking to my guns on, and it's like
It only shows maybe 5 or 6 new quick little shots
is
over.
it cut together like with the same sort of is it like the same basic American trailer only with a
It
couple new
follows that a
shots?
little bit. It uses a different
Is the music the
theme.
same
The
or
music's a different theme. I forget.
mm.
It's not just Leia's theme or whatever was the original, the American trailer.
Mm-hmm.
And they show a few, like they show Rey and Finn introducing themselves to each other. Like nothing
Oh,
revelation. There's a few new scenes of some
I'm sure.
lightsaber
Yeah, I'm
stuff,
sure
but
there's some of that.
they
Yeah.
cut out the end that was in the American trailer. They didn't have that in the Japanese trailer, so
Mm.
it's just some of the shots are most of the shots are reused, so it's not you're not going to see anything that's going to ruin the movie. So
Gotcha.
just I guess if you want to tell the quick story of what your initial plan was for the Star Wars trailer, and then what changed and how you ended up actually watching it.
Sure. So this is it. Actually, is something that It's like an approach to big trailers that I've just been doing personally for a couple of years now, which is I try to not watch them online. Like I just like to wait until I go to see a movie in the movie theater because I see almost every big movie and a lot of small ones in the movie theater. Always going to catch flicks. So it's like, okay, like there's a new Avengers trailer. I'm just gonna wait because when I see whatever in like a month, I know I'm gonna see that trailer then. And I'm fine waiting. I like, sitting in a group of a bunch of excited other nerds and all these trailers start and this big, huge screen and the big surround sound system in a movie theater and it blows us away and just blasts us in the face with awesomeness. So it's like, okay, that's how I watch most of my trailers. And Star Wars being like my number one most important thing and like the excitement level for this has been so high, I was definitely not going to do that. I was like, if there's any movie that I won't budge on my theory, it's going to be for Star Wars. So that was my plan, and me and Terminator were talking about it for a couple of days, and he was
I
like,
was
"You're
telling you,
crazy, just go
yeah,
watch it."
because I mean, I watched it on my phone the first time.
Oh, I can never do that.
I have a Droid Turbo with 1440p resolution.
Turbo,
Everything
Schmerbo, no way, can't do it.
everything on my phone looks better, like visual, like just the clarity looks better than anything I've ever seen ever in my life. Like there's no
Mm-hmm.
TV or movie theater projector screen that comes even close. Like I watch videos of like Wii U games like Mario Kart 8. I downloaded a 60 frames per second video on my phone before the game came out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It looked so amazing that my initial shock of seeing it on my TV was, oh my God, this looks like
Crap.
disappointment.
Oh man.
It looked because my phone, everything looks so good. I watched the Star Wars trailer on my computer screen since, and I watched it on my 65-inch smart TV using the YouTube app.
Mm-hmm.
It looks okay, but on
But it
my
ain't no
phone,
turbo
like
phone.
it's like, I mean, it's not 4K, but it looks so crystal clear, and because it's smaller, it hides imperfections associated with streaming. And then I had my earbuds that like they go on my ear perfect. They have good bass, and it's like it just sounded and looked amazing. So I just held the phone like 6, 7 inches
Right up
from
to
my
your face.
face,
Yeah.
and I got a better experience than even when I watched it on my 65-inch TV. So we
So
were
that
kind of arguing. I was just like, telling you how silly that is, and you need to watch this trailer. So you finally broke down. What was that finally got you to watch it?
Well, what finally got me to watch it was the fact that I just had a lot of people, which does include you, Terminator, and then a lot of my really good friends, like my friends in real life,
Hmm.
everyone who knows the Star Wars fan that I am, everyone was like wanting to ask me questions about it and talk with me about it and theorize with me and this and that. And it's like, oh, what about this? And I think this and this. And what do you think? And even though most people knew I wouldn't have watched it, because a lot of my friends know that I don't do that, I still had so many people wanting to talk to me about it. And then I was like, hearing other people start to talk about it, be like, okay, I can't listen to this podcast or watch this video because they're going to talk about it and I don't want to hear about it. And that just started to get to me. And I was like, screw it. Like, I just have to do it. So I came home and I told my girlfriend that night, I was like, okay, just so you know, I'm giving in. We're watching Star Wars tonight. She was waiting with me. She was great about it. She's like, I'm going to wait too. And I was like, we're doing it tonight. And she was like, oh, okay, well, I guess let's do it. So I've got a 50-inch TV and a nice surround sound. So I turned the lights off and turned the sound up and, tried to make it as epic as possible. Because that's the thing, like, you talk about the visual clarity on your phone and all this stuff, and I totally get that. Like for me, the experience that I want when I watch a trailer in the movie theater isn't just like I want it to look as good as it can possibly be or even sound as good. It's the experience of it's a group of people. It reminds me of way back in the day before the internet and movie trailers online when you didn't know what trailers you were going to see and you would be surprised to see a trailer for a new movie that maybe
Hmm.
you didn't know what was going to be coming out. Oh my God, there's a new Star Wars, holy cow, or a new whatever. Oh my God, they're making an Avengers movie. I didn't know until this trailer
That's like
surprised the hell out of us.
first time I saw the Terminator 3 trailer out of the blue.
Yeah, and
They
you had
put
no
together
idea.
a solid trailer, and I was left like in awe, and actually looked it up online afterwards and tried to find it again. I
Yeah.
would actually rent or buy movies that were released, let's say 20th Century Fox or something. I forget who does the Terminator movies, or a movie,
It's a Paramount?
but
We've just
whoever
been
I saw
watching
like
them. Yeah.
I saw a good trailer, then I was like, all right, in 2 weeks this movie comes out from the same studio, so I'll rent or buy that
Mm-hmm.
DVD. And actually, it actually worked, where I could see. I was kind of figured out a scheme where I could see these movie trailers because they're trying to promote their movie with their new DVD release, their new theatrical movie coming out. But
Mm-hmm.
that kind of became inconsistent and that stopped working. So
Yeah.
I just gave in, and like I said screw it, and I'd literally watch The Force Awakens on my phone happily if like they're like, oh, if there's a leaked version, or here you can rent it right now on your phone and watch it. I'd do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Like,
I get it. Everyone's the same way. I'm the weirdo that's like, no, like I'm just gonna wait. Like I like Avengers 2, man, people were like yelling at me about that. And it's like, I'm gonna wait, man. Like I'm gonna wait. That's just what I
see,
do.
I find going to the theater where I live, the goers there are just they're not excited people, and a lot of times the
Really? That's
trailers
too
end with
bad.
awkward silence, and even the people I go with, they're just like, I'm usually like, "What'd you think of that?" And there's, "Oh, looks
Like,
okay."
it's a
Like,
movie. It's
there's
another
no
movie.
excitement.
Yeah.
And
It depends.
usually
Well, to me, a lot of times it depends on where you're going. Like if you're catching a matinee on a Wednesday, like you're gonna have that crowd. To be fair, me and a lot of my friends, we always try to hit like the midnight premieres of like the biggest movie when that crowd that would get excited is
that's
there.
true. I usually
When I
avoid that crowd.
like
I almost always go on Saturday or Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, and that's the difference. So that totally makes sense. Man of Steel, the very first Man of Steel trailer, not the Comic Con one, but the one from before that. For example, I waited on that, and same with the second Star Wars trailer too. But I waited until I went to see Avengers because I was like, I'm telling you, I feel like I know it's DC and Marvel. I feel like I'm going to see a Man of Steel trailer before Avengers: Age of Ultron, so I'm going to wait. Sure enough, that trailer play. It was the first trailer before Age of Ultron, and it was so loud and crazy and people went nuts. Like everyone was like cheering and screaming and like, "You're like that's gonna be the best, whatever." And it was like that, my friends, is why I wait to watch trailers in the movie theater because all my fellow nerds, strangers, everyone just got excited. But it was also a midnight premiere for Avengers, so that crowd was going to be
I wonder if
there.
I don't know, the last few big movies I saw, there wasn't any big trailers in front of it. It was just some that what's that movie with the pretty woman chick?
Julia Roberts.
Julie Roberts has like a new like revenge, like she's like a cop and her daughter gets killed or something. Like
Huh.
I see that almost every time I go to the theater the last 2 months.
God, I hadn't
No
seen
idea
that
what
in
it's
the newer.
called. Like
Yeah.
it's always lame. I always seen lame previews, so I'm just like, is it because I
Yeah.
go on Saturday afternoon? I don't know, but
I don't know. And I mean, you do always run that risk. Obviously, it's like,
so
oh, I'm going to go see this movie hoping to see a trailer. And then instead you get the new Julia Roberts movie. Like
mm.
you said, like there is that risk.
so so anyway, you sat down and watched it. So
I
I
sat
just
down and
want to,
watched it.
what, how did it impact you when the first time you saw it? What were you feeling?
So, like obviously with how good the music is, like a lot of emotion because it's like so powerful and it's evoking like that old school feel from the original trilogy stories. Even though that music is in all the films, it was like that specific theme was introduced in the first film. So,
Hmm.
and we're dealing with like the direct sequel to the end of that trilogy, so it just makes you feel the epic story that we know we're going to get. So a lot of emotion when I first saw it, but I also like the super huge Star Wars nerd in me. You know, I'm a fan of all the movies, as you and I have discussed.
Hmm.
I'm a fan of all the expanded lore, both the old canon and the new canon. I'm going through that. So I pretty quickly was like dissecting the hell out of every shot, wondering what it means and who's this and what's this story and well, you know, Finn said this. Like, what if it means this and not what other people think? And what the
Hmm.
hell's with Kylo Ren? And then at the very end shot, it's like, oh my god, he was fighting Finn but his helmet was off because you could see his hair. So it's like, oh, that was Kylo Ren, but without his helmet. So what's all that about? So I mean, pretty quickly after I got over like the shock and awe of just how epic it felt to see all these things again and see Leia. Thank God we finally saw Leia. And I knew we weren't going to see Luke, but we can get into that in a minute. I was like, wow, what does this all mean? So it was great. It was very very emotional. Finally seeing that and hearing the old school themes and stuff again. I will say, and I'll be curious to hear your thoughts on this. Still, my favorite of the trailers, though, is actually the second one. I actually still preferred that one even to this one, even though this was like the full 2 minute trailer. I really, really liked how that second one played out. But yeah, I really just went into story dissection and theorizing as soon as I saw it. So
Yeah, the first time I saw it, um, I'm just glad there wasn't a ton of people around because I felt my eyes welling up like
mm-hmm.
that music, and because the first two trailers didn't convince me that this was a movie I needed to see. Like there was nothing. The teaser kind of pissed me off. It didn't piss me off. I just don't like teasers, and I just knew that the special effects weren't. They probably didn't have anything done. They didn't have anything to
Mm-hmm.
show.
Mm-hmm.
The second trailer, I was like, okay, um, you're not making me forget Phantom Menace or Attack of the Clones. You know, I'm still worried.
Mm-hmm.
The final trailer threw all those worries right in the trash. Like they were gone, immediately gone from like the opening when that somebody says like, "Who are you?" Like as soon as I heard that,
Yeah,
and I heard the piano, single piano
yeah, it
notes,
felt really good.
all
It
my
felt really good.
worries, and then it got into the main theme from Star Wars
Yeah,
and seeing the shots of the TIE fighters over the water. Like I know they showed that before, but like
it's
everything,
impactful. It's really impactful.
like eyes welling up and chills, hair standing up, you know, just that, oh my God, this is, it's probably top three best trailers of all time for me. I,
Wow,
I think
that's a tall order. It's
Return of the
it.
King is up there with it. And
Mhm.
I'm trying to even think of a third one. I didn't want to give it any more higher. I know there's probably one that was amazing that I forgot about, but
Sure. That could be a whole nother podcast, man. Our favorite trailers. We should do that.
so so I was just like, all right, this is I got to go see this movie. For the Phantom Menace, I avoided the rush for the first couple weeks. I was thinking of doing the same thing for this, but I heard
Nah,
Red
you don't
Knight
want
was
to do
telling
that.
me certain theaters we're showing it in every theater they have. So
Yeah, it's that's why it's breaking every record right
there's
now.
gonna be
It's
there's gonna be room, so I'll probably see it on the Saturday after it comes out. And
you're going to be 2 days behind the rest of the world, man. Everyone's going to be losing their minds about it for a couple of days.
like I said, put every worry I had to ease or whatever the expression is. Like I'm just confident now that the movie's in the right hands, and I guess break it down to like just the performances in the trailer. Like I know they could have just showed the best performance, but just the emotion on the actors' faces and The way they delivered their lines, it just felt convincing. And I'm not worried at all about the cast. It just seems like they got the right people. Like I said, it's short little shots, but seeing what's her name, Ridley, something Ridley,
Daisy Ridley.
Daisy Ridley,
Yeah.
like seeing the emotion on her face and everything, like when she's watching that spaceship take off, like just you can just tell on her face what she's thinking. It's like perfect, and I'm just like, all right, they got looks like great actors and the right people for their roles. And then you got Harrison Ford. Maybe his was probably the weakest of the trailer. I thought his lines.
Yeah, I feel
I don't
like
like that.
they're
I don't like the his gruffy voice that he
that's
uses
how
now.
he talks.
I know.
That's the Harrison Ford of 2015, you know.
So, but
This isn't the don't get cocky kid kind of Harrison Ford. This
mhm.
is the older Han Solo.
Like
Yeah,
it's all true.
it's
Like
all true.
almost
Yeah.
Batman. So
Swear to me.
then you got TIE fighters, you got the music, everything looks right. Like
Sure,
the
and I think that a lot of this can be attributed to kind of just where it's taking place, and there's just so much going on in the Star Wars universe. I will happily remind everyone watching, like, Terminator and I share different opinions on the prequels. So when he talks about being worried about, oh, like I don't have the feeling of like Phantom Menace or Attack of the Clones, and I get what you're coming from because there are a lot of people that don't like those movies also. I love those movies just as much as any of them. I'm a fan. I hold all six films in equal standards, even though they have different impact on film history. But there's no doubt that coming back to the feel of what started it all in the original trilogy is way more exciting. And they obviously know how to make this film look and feel, even without the creator behind it. And I obviously people have different opinions even on Lucas in his later years, and I get that. There's some of those criticisms that are accurate. Some of them I think are overblown. He was the guy who I wish was still kind of the mastermind behind it because I love the story he told us for six films. But he worked very, very closely with the people as everything was shifting gears as he was retiring and handing the reins over. Disney makes me nervous, but Lucasfilm and Kathleen Kennedy I trust to no end. So I think those are the guys and the people, and the Lucasfilm story group, Pablo Hidalgo, that's been keeping all the canon in track for years upon years. Those guys know where to take this story, and the look and feel is fantastic. And the use of the music, like I just couldn't be more excited. So I'm definitely right there with you there. I think that they're going to be, and the fact that they recently confirmed we're continuing the Skywalker saga, which is really good to hear because there was some, I guess I don't want to say concerns, but we weren't quite sure what story they were telling us for so long. And it was driving me crazy that we didn't know at least what the story was. I don't want to know the surprises. I don't
mhm.
want to know every individual moment, but what's the story? Like, when the prequels were coming out, we knew, oh, okay, we're learning who Darth Vader was as a young boy. We're learning how the guy became Darth Vader. That's the story we're learning. Everything else was a mystery. Who's Mace Windu? What's this? What's that? No one knows, but we know the story. This new trilogy, it's like, well, there's some people with lightsabers and it's Star Wars and it's called Episode 7. Okay, but what's the
They don't
story?
even. I like that they're not even like. I, Let me go back to 1999, and two of the things that bugged me most about the Phantom Menace trailer, and I wish I had like documented proof because anyone
Too
could.
late. I won't believe you. I won't
Yeah,
believe you.
I didn't like episode one being like the main draw.
Mm,
If you look at the poster, if you look at anything, episode one is in huge letters, and then it's little tiny Star Wars and Phantom Menace in
yeah,
medium.
I know
I'm
the
like,
exact logo you're talking
I'm
about.
like, this is Star Wars. Like, why are you focusing on the episode name? And then the other thing that bugged me was all the ships and all the designs. Everything was like super fancy, super
Mm,
shiny, super curved,
I
and I'm
I
just
can
like,
I can put a squash on that whole second theory.
yeah, it's. I don't care what you say. You could say, oh, they've been repressed the 20 years after those movies ended, and no, you got to keep some kind of cohesiveness. You can't have the past look shinier. Yeah, the world hit a war and all that and stuff, but it didn't look like Star Wars. It never did to me. So
Sure,
even when
and
I
that
first
makes
saw those
sense. It makes
trailers, I was
sense.
like, yeah, it's Star Wars, it's cool, but I didn't like the episode one, and I didn't like the look of it. It didn't look like Star Wars to me. So those
Yeah,
were
I love the look of those films. I love that it has the feel that it does, and it's one of those things where you can only fight the passage of time and technology so much, and that became less of a concern. It was more about making the movies that were supposed to be told in the way that they were being told. Does it mess with the consistency a little bit? Totally. And is it too bad that it messes with the consistency? Yeah, it's too bad. But at the end of the day, like even I just remind myself, they are just movies and they're just
Mm,
great stories, and that's what I focus on. The episode one, like the titling of the title cards and stuff, I can definitely get behind what you're saying there. I never really like cared, but it's a valid complaint, and it's obvious that that was like the Lucasfilm marketing machine at play of like, hey, we're really pushing forward that this is this part of the story. It's the episode one. It's more exciting because it's the beginning and it's
yeah,
going back in time. To be fair, you also have to remember it might not have been the first prequel, quote unquote, ever, but I'll tell you, like, no one was going back in time to tell stories really until the prequel Star Wars films sort of made that like a pop culture idea. Now it's common in video games and movies and TV shows and whatever. That was like, in my time on this earth, one of the first times I can remember the very concept of a prequel. I think it was the first time we even used that word. So I think that they sort of felt obligated, for better or worse, to really push forward and let people know, even like the casual fan who might not have known what you and I knew, that we're going back in time. This isn't a sequel in the traditional sense. This isn't Return of the Jedi Part 2. This is way before those movies even happened. And tell me if you run into this problem, even still nowadays, when people are talking about the movies, when they say the first movies, do they mean the first ones made or the first ones
yeah.
chronologically? People still get confused. And it's hard to explain to the casual fan what's going on. And so I think that that was probably a marketing trick to try to really help people understand that it's one of many and not a sequel to six kind of thing. So I think that's where that came from at the
Yeah,
time.
I mean, I can understand that, but I always just like with the Hunger Games and Divergent, like just name the movie
Yeah.
Catching Fire. Just name the movie
Yeah.
Insurgent. You don't
I
have
mean,
to
the
put,
books are that way, right? It's just Hunger Games
yeah,
and Catching Fire. Then, yeah.
you don't have to put Divergent series. And that's how I felt the same way. Like you're
Yeah. Harry
I'm
Potter
not
kind of
stupid.
created that one there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I'm not stupid. I know that this is the first Star Wars movie and it takes place before, but
See, but
it's like
don't put past the stupidity of a group of
I know
people.
the
It,
world people are dumb, but
yeah, it's a
it was
sad
one of
truth.
those things where I was just like, what is this? And
I hear
then
you.
just one last thing, I don't want to talk about the prequels, but
We can talk about the prequels.
Attack of the Clones felt that name to me, that was just a I let's it was the day it got announced. I was at work. I didn't know my boss that well. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know he didn't like Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard the name and I was like, close the computer browser and I was like, can you believe Attack of the Clones? I was like, they're calling the second Star Wars movie Attack of the Clones. It's like that's the dumbest name. And he's like, I've never seen a Star Wars movie. I was like,
And then
oh.
you promptly slapped him across the face,
But I'm
hopefully.
just like, so it was I wasn't one of those people that because everyone else is saying they're bad now. I didn't like them from the get go. So I'm not one of those
That's
people that
fair. I
jumped on the
certainly
bandwagon.
I appreciate that way more than the bandwagoners nowadays. I also like the fact that also nowadays with the new Star Wars fanship, a lot of the prequel supporters are coming out of the woodwork, and it feels like all the people who still really like and appreciate those films, like I do, are just as vocal, if not more so, as all the prequel haters who are really,
Mm-hmm.
I think, just the keyboard warriors. Personally, you're different. You're telling me that you always felt that way, and my whole thing is like, at least if you give them a shot, that's fine. Any film, any Star Wars film or whatever, like, stick to your guns and just be honest and true about it. And it's not about changing someone's mind as it is just accepting that, these movies exist and they add to the lore, and some people like them and some people don't, and that's fine. I get that they're not unanimously loved like the originals, but there's a lot of good happening there. And I will
I,
say, with Attack of the Clones as a title, I'm going to tell you the reason I like it. And it's not just because I like the movie. It kind of speaks as to the inspiration George Lucas had when creating even the first Star Wars film. It's very kitschy, it's very B movie 1950s Attack of the Saucermen. That's what it is. It's those old school Hammer film kind of horror films, and those ideas of like, oh, Attack of the 50-foot woman, and it's this cheesy poster of a giant woman crushing a building, and it's, oh, Attack of the Clones. It's supposed to be that way. He was
well,
inspired by the likes of
that'd be
Flash
fine if
Gordon and all these things.
the other movies followed any kind of suit like that. It
I
stood
get
out.
it. I
It's
get
out of the
it.
blue. Like it's a big budget. Star Wars fans are very passionate. Now is not the time to, oh, I want to have a throwback to the 50s. No, that's like,
Well, to be fair, I see what you're saying, but to be fair, really all the movies, even the cheesiness and the campiness, and like people talk about the specific acting in the prequels, and it's like, dude, none of the acting was good in any of the movies, and that's fine. That's what makes Star Wars what it is. We love it for the cheesiness and the goofiness, and then those crazy emotional moments because the characters themselves are good. Sometimes the actors are not as good as other actors, and that's too bad. But that's not what we fell in love with, man. Like that's not to me the essence of Star Wars isn't that. It's the characters and it is the cheesy campiness. And to me, like what I liked about the prequel titles too is how they actually mirror the original titles. Like he was very big on this film symmetry. George Lucas always said, I treat the two trilogies like they're stanzas in a poem, and each stanza has a rhyming component. And we don't want to get into the story beats. I could do that for all three films of each trilogy and do the story beats too. But if we look at the titles, they're also similar. A New Hope is like the Phantom Menace. It's an adjective noun. It's a thing. That's what it is. Attack of the Clones and The Empire Strikes Back is a thing doing a thing. It's like an action or a verb. And then, Revenge of the Sith and Return of the Jedi, they're very much like the emotion and the feeling of the actual noun, which is,
especially it's supposed to be Revenge of the Jedi, then they changed it. So
yeah, and it's cool that he went back and sort of had a throwback there. So I like the kind of,
I didn't mind. I did like the name, and the movie overall was a pretty good way to finally. It did feel at the end a little too okay. Now here's Darth Vader. Like at the very end, like I don't know, last felt like 10 minutes
it was
maybe.
like the last 10 minutes. Yeah, it
They
was
kind
very
of
much at
wrapped
the end.
everything up a little too quickly and neatly. It would have been okay with me if like maybe the last 25-30 minutes was kind of okay. Now he's Darth Vader and all that, but
Well,
whatever.
let
That's
me
just
let me just
completely.
remind you this. I know you probably want to move on from this, but I'll remind you this one thing, and this is something I thought was brilliant. He was Darth Vader before he put the suit on. He was dubbed Darth Vader
Hmm.
when he killed Mace Windu 25 minutes before the movie ended. And then Palpatine said, like, you are now my pupil, my apprentice. I dub you Darth Vader. That was when he became Darth Vader.
Yeah.
He turned to the dark side when he sliced Mace Windu's hand off. That was the moment he let passion and greed to protect the one he loved get in the way of his path of the Jedi. He was like, fuck it, I will do this horrible thing. I will kill one of my masters to make sure that the one I love stays alive, which was the very mistake that led him to become a Sith in the first place, as he learned love as a young boy. And that
Hmm.
was that was the mistake on his path to become a Jedi,
Yeah, and it's like
not of the Sith.
there was some epic like space battle to start that movie. Like that one, I even think they started like George Lucas. I think made a realization that things needed to start looking more because it's only New Hope only takes place what Luke's like what 18-20,
It's a 19-year gap between them.
so 19. So I think he realized, oh, I got to start making things kind of look like A New Hope. So like
Mm-hmm.
the ships kind of look like a little bit towards Star Destroyers at the end. I think there
Oh, I
actually
love
is.
that. Yeah, yeah. Well,
So
and they kind of lay the groundwork at the end of Attack of the Clones there too, because in that film, when the Clone War starts, and you start to learn, okay, Palpatine is creating this clone army to make them his army once he switches
mhm.
gears, and we didn't know how that was going to happen. Like, I know you probably hate watching these movies, but just pull up the very last 10 minutes of Attack of the Clones and watch the closing shot with those huge ships and the armies of clone troopers with Palpatine looking down on them, still pretending to be a good guy, and they're marching onto these ships that look kind of like Star Destroyers, and the old school Star
Mhm.
Wars music is playing. It's like Palpatine is turning it into the Empire we know in the older movies,
Yeah,
and then
like
with Revenge of the yeah.
I think that would have been a more interesting to focus on instead of having, they still try to make it the adventure movie with uh
Obi-Wan going off on his
Obi-Wan
thing, and
and Anakin. For me personally, I would have liked more of the movie to be about seeing them becoming the Empire and stuff. Like I also, last thing, I know you'll probably have a counter to it, but
I won't even bring it up. I'll just let you go.
Boba
So
Fett's dad he's the clone. Like they had to tie Boba Fett in, put him in the movie. Now his
mm-hmm.
dad is the clone of all the stormtroopers are Boba Fett's dad. Like I don't know, that felt like an unnecessary. I didn't even like the whole idea of them all being the same.
Mm-hmm.
To me that just
Well,
that
what's
seemed.
what's really neat. is like people discussed this too after Attack of the Clones came out. There was a lot of people discussing like, wow, so all the stormtroopers are clones, and but then some people brought up, well, why are they different heights?
Hmm.
Like they're not all the same height in those old movies, and obviously you're dealing with 30 years of difference
I'm just
making
talking.
them.
Yeah, that was another thing that
But
went against the continuity. It's like
but
just
it
make
doesn't.
them.
Here's what people brought up though is the idea is people started once the Empire actually came to rule, people started enlisting. So stormtroopers are made up of a mix of clones that are Jango Fett and actual just people and residents of the galaxy that have enlisted. So that's kind of how that works. Pretty
Or they
cool, I
could have
think.
had multiple candidates be like have an army of Jengas, and then there could have been another group to take
Some
them from
that they
somebody
made
else.
clones out of.
They could have,
Actually,
yeah. It
I
would have
never
been a
heard that.
pretty simple and easy solution to say, okay, he's going to be for our certain line of stormtroopers, and then there's because of his personality type and
Hmm.
stuff. They could have done some more, but anyway, the new trailer showed us, some shots, a lot of nostalgia. Just to wrap it up, um, is there anything in the trailer that we're like, ooh, I don't know about that. I didn't have any moments like that, but I wonder if you did.
Oh, no way, not at all. No,
Okay.
it was a. I mean, even though the second trailer is probably my favorite overall, just as how it's directed and cut together, and some of the stuff it showed us, like definitely not. It looked fantastic. I like the fact that they showed us Kylo Ren without his helmet on at the end there,
Hmm.
because to me it puts to rest that ridiculous theory that he is Luke Skywalker. Because what I could have maybe sort of allowed people to get away with, even though I never would have believed this, what I would have allowed people to get away with is the theory that he's Luke Skywalker if we never saw him with his helmet off. Because then it's like, oh, we don't know what he looks like, and Adam Driver is just playing the body of Kylo Ren, right? But then we see him with his helmet off, and it's like, okay, it's not Luke Skywalker, it's a different man. So it's not Luke Skywalker. I really appreciated that they showed us that little nugget without like rubbing it
Well,
in our
they didn't.
faces.
I couldn't even tell his helmet was off. I watched the trailer 20 times and I still couldn't
Really?
see where everyone's like, oh, his helmet's off. Like, I
I
don't
saw
see
it the
that.
first time I watched it, but
I don't even see it. Even looking at it, I don't even see it. It's just dark. And
I mean, who knows? Maybe I'm wrong and other people are wrong. I guess
well, other people
that's
have said
it's nice
that,
that
but
yeah. I
I've
mean, maybe we're
looked
all wrong.
specifically at it and I'm like, I don't see the obviousness that there's no helmet. Maybe there's a shot where you barely
Does
see.
it not look like his hair? I mean, what does it look
I
like to
didn't.
you?
I just saw like his. He has like a um, what do you call it? Like a cape or something on, doesn't he? He's like a.
He does have a
He
cape,
looked
but
like he had like a tall like a collar or something, and then barely just something above it, like what
hmm.
could have been hair,
I'm
could have
gonna
been.
I'm gonna pull it up when we get
Me
done
too.
here, and yeah, and like pause it and try to look at it.
So
Um,
yeah, we better wrap this up. We're almost hitting the 2 hour mark. I didn't think
I
it.
got a movie to go see.
Yeah, you're going to see Spectre, and
Hmm.
reviews aren't good for it, but
Yeah, I
um,
know, but I'm
I'm
excited. It's
still hopeful. I thought Skyfall was terrible. I stopped. I couldn't even make it through. So
really.
yeah,
I don't think it's the best Bond, but it was fine.
it's the first movie that I can remember in the last 10 years where I just stopped watching. I just turned it off. It's like, okay,
Wow. You finish at least because the end has a pretty big revelation about Bond's past.
yeah,
So,
it just
you
was
know.
so boring, and I didn't care for any of the Daniel Craig ones. Casino Royale is a decent movie, but
Oh, it's my favorite. Casino Royale is so good, I think.
it's not a good Bond movie. It's a pretty good movie. So anyway,
Okay.
we got a few questions. I thought maybe let's see, depending on,
Sure.
just do some quick answers here. Tony Karan asked, since we are now 27 days away from Xenoblade Chronicles X, do you think Nintendo of America should make a commercial for this epic JRPG? Definitely, they better.
Yeah,
I
of
thought
course.
they need to start advertising. The game's printed; it's on disc. They already review copies are already out, so the game's done.
Yeah, and I mean, I would be hesitant to say like, oh, maybe they should do like a Nintendo Direct or a special presentation, but they've kind of done that a couple times. We might be too close to the release. They
They just
definitely
need
need to
TV ads.
advertise it.
They need to get some ads out there and get people aware that this game exists.
And this is, yeah, essentially a first party game. This almost goes back to some of the boneheaded decisions we talked about at the beginning. Why would you not put forth even half the marketing campaign a game like Splatoon had? Just put that forward, like a couple of commercials, like just one or two things, like at a football game. You can't afford to put one like ad on a major football game or something, and show a couple people, hey, this really great, beautiful looking, huge game that you've made is coming out soon, and maybe people should buy it.
Yeah,
Like,
because Fox plays Avatar quite, or FX plays Avatar quite frequently, and it's like just advertise,
Yeah.
throw it out, throw the not Pandora, whatever the hell the planet's called. I forget. And
What
I
the hell
know
is it
in
called?
Avatar, but I forgot in Xenoblade
Yeah.
what it's called. Don't show them the combat, don't show them the gameplay, just show them mechs and
Yeah,
show them the
the
sprawling
environments.
environments.
And the average gamer or TV viewer is going to want to see a game that has really pretty visuals, and that game is stinking gorgeous. Like,
Yeah, it
be
looks,
proud of it. Like,
especially when Game Explain, they're flying in the scale
yeah, I
and
saw that.
the
Yeah,
draw distance. Yeah, that you don't see like the creatures from way up in the sky, but the actual planet and everything, the textures look really good even from
amazing.
way up in the air. So,
Yeah.
all right, we got the Fox shot. He said he's happy he finally made a live podcast. So that's another
Ooh,
reason to do it on the weekend. You can
yeah,
get some different viewers.
yeah. Thanks for tuning
Um,
in, dude.
and then he asked, "What do you think Nintendo? When do you think this is the when's a big this is very
Mm.
debatable in this question. When do you
Hmm.
think Nintendo will announce or release a better, thinner version of the Wii U gamepad? Do you think it will have a longer battery life? I think the answer to that is never. I think if would have been the proper question, not when.
Yeah, I feel like if all these signs hadn't been leading to them moving to the NX like sooner than a lot of us would have guessed, I would think maybe sometime soon, but I'm with Terminator at this one. Like, I don't think that there's enough incentive. I don't think they're planning on trying to keep the Wii U going long enough to even warrant doing that. They might, I would see them doing like a smaller Wii U, like before I'd see them doing just the gamepad.
And you're talking, they got to design it, they got to manufacture. I don't honestly know if they're planning on manufacturing a whole lot of more Wii U's from this
No,
point on.
I don't think
I
so,
think
man. It's
I have a feeling they ordered a certain amount of them manufactured. They have them manufactured, and they're just going to ride it out and try to sell through till NX launches in 2016. I
yeah.
don't think they're like, if all of a sudden the Wii U caught fire with let's say Twilight Princess HD and Star Fox, and all of a sudden people went nuts for Wii U. I don't even think Nintendo has enough. I don't think they have them
There's no
manufactured.
way. I mean, if they're really like the rumors suggest, if they're moving that forward with like the dev kits and the final hardware specs and the manufacturing of the NX, I feel like all hardware manufacturing resources are just being diverted to that. So
And plus, I don't know if you aware of this. Earlier in the year, they admitted that because of the exchange rate from the yen to the U.S. dollar and the fact that they used specialized chipset, like non-market standard,
hmm.
the price has actually gone up of the hardware.
Really,
You
I
know,
did
like,
not know that.
yeah. So like they said, that's why they haven't done a price drop. That's why they just throw a game in there, a new
Yeah,
game, and keep the price 300. They actually lose money if they drop the price because
and
of,
that's probably smart at the end of the day.
yeah,
I
the
feel like it's
production
a,
costs actually rose because of their using un mass market chips and architecture. So it actually that was that worked against them,
how
um,
crazy.
having IBM create a special chip again and
I
all
will
that.
say that under different circumstances, the idea of a streamlined gamepad actually would have been cool. Like if that would have made sense in the marketplace and the Wii U was going for a while and saw enough success to believe that Nintendo would be justified in spending the money to do so. Like now they wouldn't be they'd be a waste of their money. But if it made sense, I think it'd be great. Like a streamlined gamepad could have
Yeah,
been
just
pretty
think
cool.
OLED screen that could, instead of an LCD, it could
Yeah, I
be
mean, if
half the
Microsoft can sell a
thickness.
$150 version of the Xbox One controller
I
that
know.
does nothing different, Nintendo could like make the gamepad way better for $150, and it would have been very smart.
Yeah,
But
make overall thinner and lighter, but then make the grips a little more substantial, so you actually feel like you're holding on to a controller. That's the
yeah,
part that bugs me is it basically rests on your middle finger, the hump or
hmm,
little, for when
the
you set
finger
it
nub
down.
thing, yeah,
Yeah, that goes across the whole back.
yeah.
If they could just made the overall unit thinner and lighter, and just had like that a better screen that's can be thinner. It can reduce the whole size. It would just been a more uh,
Yeah.
ergonomical,
In a
friendly.
different dimension, there's a world where the Wii U was super successful, and they have like all these different versions of the gamepad.
Yeah,
But in our dimension, that is not happening, sadly.
I bet if Nintendo released a slightly improved gamepad with better battery life or something and tried charging 100, people would be all up in arms. But $150 Xbox One controller. That's cool.
That's no big deal. Well, you can change out the D-pad, so it's like a whole new control. It's like a new system.
I guarantee you that thing costs $20 to manufacture.
Probably. And I say this, by the way, as a fan, the Xbox One controller is my favorite standard controller this generation. So I'm not dissing that, but I think the idea of that controller for $150 is stupid. For $40, well, maybe 50, I guess, it would have been fine. But to make it $150,
well, the regular one's 60, and with the rechargeable battery pack, it's 75.
Yeah, okay, so standard. $80, whatever. 150 is just dumb. It's dumb, and I like that controller, but that's dumb.
I think the Wii U Pro controller is better fit for my hand. It's a better shape, but the triggers on the Xbox One controller are what put it over the top.
Yeah, I like the fact that for me, I love the gamepad or the Pro controller, sorry, and I like the DualShock. Those are both really nice, but they're both very light. And I like that the Xbox One controller feels like it has the right amount of weight and beef to it without being like old school hamburger controller beefy,
Yeah.
It just feels substantial, and I love the analog sticks. So that's probably why.
Yeah, the Wii U Pro controller
is very light. It's too light.
The analog sticks don't have enough range, I don't feel. That's the only thing I don't like, and not having analog triggers, but the battery life, and I think it has the best rumble of any controller I've used. I think it has it's not just a vibration. I think it's a great rumble, and battery lasts like 80 plus hours.
The battery life is insane. I've had it for a year, and I recharged it once.
I've charged mine. I've had it since 2012. I've charged it less than 20 times, probably 15.
Yeah, I bought mine for Smash Brothers. That was when I finally bought mine last year. I will also say, people talk about the battery life and the gamepad and all this and that, and that's not great. But I think I brought this up on a podcast recently. My DualShock 4 controller, I really think has a worse battery life than even the Wii U gamepad. I cannot believe that thing. Horrible battery life.
It's like 5 hours of playing. With my extended battery, my gamepad, I can get almost 6 hours with the screen bright at 4.
There you go. So I basically never unplug my damn PS4 controller because I don't trust it. I never unplug it.
That's the one thing that I'd lean towards the Xbox One, just the controller, because that's a big part of gaming is the controller. Like,
it's huge.
So
it's way huge.
You got to buy a second PS4 controller. If you can't play close enough to have it plugged in all the time, you got to buy a second one just to use, so you can charge one while you use the other. It's like ridiculous.
It's true. Well, one good thing is with the PS3 controllers, you couldn't charge them when the system is off. And I'm pretty sure PS4 controllers do charge when it's plugged in and the system is off. So that's a nice thing that they did. I will admit that.
Yeah, that sounds like something that should be pretty standard with a battery life that low. You better be able to just plug it in without the system being on. That was dumb about the PS3. Like, I got to turn this power hog on to charge my PS3 controller, and it takes like 6 hours. It's like, no.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. I loved the PS3, but that was not okay.
That's my least favorite console of all time. So
of all time, damn, throwing the hammer down.
I didn't like anything about it, really.
Really? You're gonna hate me for saying this, but it was actually my favorite console last generation.
Really? I didn't like the OS. I didn't like the controller. I hated the analog stick location.
Yeah.
And the form factor. I got the original one.
That was disgusting. Yeah, that was.
I didn't like anything about it. I despise turning it on because I hate the operating system, and just especially when you're setting it up the first time. There's just so many menus. There's so many things hidden in menus. It's just so clustered. It's just not well thought out. So I was disappointed to see the PS4 resembled it even slightly.
Yeah.
But anyway, one more question, Zelda question. So a good way to end it.
Yeah.
Since Legend of Zelda will be celebrating their 30th anniversary, rumor has it Nintendo may release Twilight Princess HD in first quarter of 2016. Do you think they're going to release it before next fall's launch of the new Zelda? Oh, of course. This is from Tony Coran. Yeah, if Twilight Princess HD don't come out this year, it'll be before March of next year. In my feeling.
Yeah, I would agree. That's been such a crazy rumor these past couple of weeks because it's hard to tell if it's just one of those really believable fake rumors that just caught on, or if the fact that it's such a rumor means that it's actually real. Like, it's so hard to figure out.
There's smoke, there's fire, because there's so much evidence
Yeah, there's so
pointing
much.
towards it.
So I want to believe it, I mean, I talked about it on a video. Like, I'm all about a really quality remake. I hope it's, again, if it's even close to the quality that Wind Waker was, that would just be amazing.
Mhm.
But I feel like if it's happening, I know there's rumors about this, but I don't know if I could see it happening this year. I feel like it's going to be next year.
And I'm
It's
not
definitely a
even.
Wii U release.
I'd be shocked if Zelda U was holiday 2016,
Yeah, I don't think so.
unless the NX isn't coming out in 2016.
See, and I feel like I was a stalwart believer that Nintendo wouldn't do that next year, and I really realized that I think I was pretty wrong there. So I kind of feel like it is going to come out next year. That it's just there's
They
so much
have. I
going
think
on with
they
that damn
have
thing.
to. And
They
maybe
have,
someone suggested maybe it's just the mobile version, the handheld version.
yeah, I heard that somewhere too. I think
But if it's gonna play the same games, then it
that would
basically.
almost be disappointing to me. Like, I would get it and I'd be excited, but it's like, no, man, don't give me this little tease. Like, either do it all together or just make it a console. Like,
Because I'd be shocked. Let's say the NX launches in 2016 holiday.
mhm.
I would be shocked if Zelda U launched anywhere near that. If I'm thinking May 2016 for Zelda. If
You
the
mean
NX is
2017?
no 2016 May for Zelda, 2016 November for the NX.
Oh, so you mean for Zelda Wii U?
Yeah, Zelda Wii
Oh,
U.
okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I guess that's
Twilight
true.
Princess HD, like I said, that's going to be out quickly, beginning of the year. If not,
Do you think that there's no stock in the theory that Zelda could be going as for a dual launch? What's your feelings on that?
I don't see that happening.
Okay.
They did it before, but like if Zelda, let's say the NX comes out and it's $400 or $350 or whatever, and it's basically it's not gonna look that much different. I don't see it. Like I don't see them unless they started already converting it to NX graphics capabilities or something.
Hmm.
And then the Wii U's, there's no way the Wii U's going to be $300 when the NX launches. So
Hmm.
why would anybody, if they were just waiting for Zelda, I just see some people saying, I'll just buy the Wii U for 200 and Zelda and I'll be good, then I can
Yeah.
play. So it just doesn't make sense to me. Uh, they've reconfirmed it's coming to the Wii U
Hmm.
and
Which is
maybe,
good. Which is good.
yeah, but it's like, that's the only thing that has me thinking maybe the NX is coming in 2017 because they could. But then it's like, why would they do that? The Wii U isn't moving. It's doing a little bit better than last year at this point, but there's no Smash for the holidays.
Yeah.
There's no excitement for 2016. They did that themselves.
Well, I think there's time for them to create that excitement, though,
There is
because
so
if they really push the Zelda, the Star Fox, the Pikmin 4, if that sticks to next year, if they push the marketing machines on those games right there, and even the Fire Emblem and Shin Megami Tensei thing, they've got like enough that they could try to make a big push to say, "Hey, Wii U is still relevant. Look at these really high-profile games."
yeah. I mean, they have
They may not do that though, so who knows?
yeah because they got the Pokken tournament, which I think looks the combat looks lame.
I haven't seen very much on.
It
I'm not really
looks. It
interested.
does not
So
look good to me.
okay. It's
Shin
going to be a big
Megami.
game though. I think it's going to sell well.
It might. It's
Yeah.
not doing well in Japan arcades, but
Oh,
it's already being pulled. So
damn.
no real. I don't think that's going to be a big. That can't be their big May title. I just don't think it's. I mean, people might be excited, and maybe if the gameplay gets people excited, but
Hmm.
that's not their May title. So that's why I think it has to be
You think it'd
Zelda,
be Zelda? Yeah.
Star Fox, in February.
What if
It,
Star Fox gets one more delay to May and it came out in May though?
I don't. I
I
mean,
almost feel
that's
like
cool.
Star
I don't
Fox
think
is a
that's
better
a
May title.
I don't think that's a good May title. Me
No.
personally,
Well, you're not into Star Fox too
their
much, right?
last two May titles have been heavy online games though,
Yeah.
and
Well, they're
ports.
adding online to Star Fox. Didn't you know
Yeah, they put in.
that?
It's got some connectivity, but
Yeah, there's something happening there. That's a really
um,
interesting thing, but who
so
knows?
it's just like Shin Megami, whatever. That's not gonna do anything in the
No,
U.S.
not here. It's not going to be
So
huge.
you
No.
got potentially Twilight Princess HD, Star Fox, and Zelda U really as the only titles, and maybe if Pikmin 4. Yeah, that's a decent lineup for 2016, but
Hmm.
that's in my opinion, Zelda trumps everything.
Hmm.
But one game, you take the rest. And Star Fox is going to be, I'm sure it's going to be a really good game.
Hmm.
But I think it's too late for Star Fox to have an impact on Wii U sales or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I think it's a decent. That would be a decent 2016. You know, Zelda would make up for a lot of it, but getting to Zelda, waiting all the way to November, only having Star Fox and potentially a remake and Pokken Fighter, that's just not enough to carry through to Zelda.
Hmm.
So that's why I'm thinking Zelda's the May title, and then NX comes out in
It
holiday.
makes a lot of sense, and you keep talking about a decent lineup, and I
Because that's not a bad
agree.
first half of the year. You're talking
It's not. It's
Star
just tough because like
Fox.
Wii U, all it could do right now is have a decent year. Like that's like the best they could get out of it. So it's pretty much exactly what you said. And it makes sense. I mean, I certainly following that line of thinking, I could see Zelda being the May title, and I sure as hell want it to be because I want it as soon as I can get it. I'm ready to have this game, even though I like the idea of it getting a dual release, and I really would like the idea of it just becoming like a kick-ass next gen release. Like I'm ready to just like put my foot in my mouth and just eat the dirt of having the sadness of it skip the Wii U altogether. Like, and I would deal with it being an NX only title if it came down to it, if it made that game really like that much better. But yeah, at the same time, like I even said this on a video recently, like the Wii U owners deserve that game, so it needs to release on the Wii U, and
Yeah,
it's
I think we
smart that
do.
they confirm that. Yeah, we absolutely do. Every Wii U owner should have that game like they've been promising. So it's good that it's still doing what it's doing, and because we know it's doing what it's doing, I do just want it as soon as I can finally have it. It's felt like a myth in my mind for so long. I don't even know what to do with Zelda on the Wii U. It's like, what is that game really? And with the next time we see it, will it look vastly different than what we've seen? Like, I kind of think it might. So that's going to be really interesting to see too. But I don't think we'll find out about Zelda Wii U, the next announcement or update, until like February or March next year. That's when I think we'll officially see something new on it. That's my guess.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. And I don't think they'll change. I think that the game environment, like the everything they created, I don't think any of that will change. Like the world, because
Mm-hmm.
that must have took them years to design, then come up with that. But um, maybe some of the gameplay or something completely refined. I'm not sure. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting. That's why it's just I just can't wait till we actually know, so we can stop speculating.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm
Just
even that
tell
way with
us.
the NX too, with both of them. It's like, Jesus, just get this stuff out already.
So
Like,
I'm like,
just give us
Wii U
info.
only, split release, or NX only. Out of
Yeah.
those three choices,
What is it?
what's my preferred?
Oh.
And you
What is
know,
your preferred? So what is your preferred?
God, it's hard to say. I'm leaning towards Wii U only, but just the thought of it being an NX title, just to
Mm-hmm.
get the NX hitting the ground running,
Mm-hmm.
excites me for the future. But as a Wii U owner, and I love the console, it's my favorite Nintendo system of all time.
Mm.
It's got to be on the Wii U. So I guess I would be happiest because everybody else would probably be happy with a split release. I think that would be the best choice for Nintendo to make.
Yeah.
But for me personally, I'd be happy with just a Wii U release. I think.
Yeah. It sounds like the only option you don't like is the NX only.
Yeah,
That'd be
just be
hard for them to recoup from that, man. They would be really damaging some people if they did that. But they're
and
not, so
it better have a gamepad if it's NX only. It better support the gamepad because I want to use gyro for aiming and I want to use the map and everything on the gamepad. So
yeah, it's part of the
item
appeal.
quick item switching like with Wind Waker HD, all that I want. So
Yeah.
all right, we went way longer than we planned, but
As we always do.
we haven't talked in a while, and I kind of thought bringing up Star Wars might be a bad idea, so that added to
Or it was a great idea, so well done.
So yeah, so if you want to say any closing thoughts or anything, then we're gonna wrap this up.
Yeah, just as always, I love getting on a podcast with you. I think Terminator Juice has the best gaming podcasts on the internet, so you can just kind of consider that a quote and put it on
Damn.
someone's headstone. Yeah, I said it. So yeah, I always love doing this. I love chatting with you because you're right. We haven't talked in person in a super super long time. So it's cool to do this for a little like one off or the beginning of a series, maybe like a weekend podcast. I was glad to be a part of it, and we got to talk about gaming and movies, so that was a nice little mix there too.
Yeah,
So yeah,
because I like them both equally, movies and games. And
Yeah, same here.
so yeah, if some big news comes out and you don't, you do your own, you do your videos. You got a lot more subscribers than me, but you do your videos, and they seem to be well received, and you get to give your opinion there. But it would be, if we got a big direct or something in the next couple weeks, I'll definitely be interested to have you back on. Maybe have a couple other people from the West Coast, and try to
West
get a
Coast, West
group
Side.
discussion. So,
Yeah,
but
that'd be fun,
yeah,
man.
and good discussion, man. Good talking with you, and I want to thank everybody who's watched this live. And feel free to comment, when it uploads to YouTube, and be sure to tell Robert how wrong he is about the Star Wars prequels.
Yeah,
And
no one listened to Terminator Juice. He's a nice man, that Terminator, but he's a little crazy. So just be nice to him.
so, yeah, I just want to thank Rob for joining me, and we'll see you next time. Who knows? It might be next week, could be a month. Who knows? So,
Who knows?
thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next video, everybody.